残されな思いよといや山津に届く時は重く道もないのに尋ねよ胸の深くいにしえ闇のフォース
Sorry for the delay there. Alrighty. So I'm just gonna send out some links to people before get started. Oh yeah, let me. Okay, here I am. Okay, just gonna send the. I'm just gonna send the links out to people. And then we'll get started shortly. I don't want this to take too long to start. And I do have a Discord notification. Oh. Oh, looks like Chronic streaming too. I see. Alrighty, and then I just have the X link to post. No doubt I'm probably going to be posting it later. Let's see. Yep, I got everything I need. Alrighty. How is everyone doing tonight? I see we're starting to get some viewers in this bitch. How is everyone? Let me put this on here. Oh man, I'm just gonna take a little bit of time before I get before I start seeing red, just to kind of see how everyone's doing. Rexus, what's up? What's up? How are ya? Let's see. Okay, there's just a link to Chronic stream. Pickles being an ass on Discord. Typical Pickle. Ah, man, we have a lot to go over, that's for sure. I think probably in like a minute I'm going to be explaining kind of the plan for this stream, because we have no itinerary tonight. We're not using the itinerary. I kind of want this to be like, what was that episode? Like, I know what it was, kind of. Let's see. And I'm trying to recall which stream. I know the topic. I think it was the centrist libertarians. Yeah, ripping on them. Or was it trudging through the slop? I think it might have been the centrist libertarian one, or the trudging through the slop episode. So we're either way. It's gonna be one of those streams where I'm basically just I have stuff planned. It's not like this is unplanned, but I want to kind of weave a narrative with this one, so to speak. And because of that, I'm only just having moonshine tonight, so no rum today. I'm actually saving that for next week. Okay. So, let's actually start this off right. I got a little bit of moonshine here, so we could already have some of that. And bottoms up. I'm doing well. I've been watching Archives of American Krogan. Yeah, I know who that guy is. He's pretty cool. Oh yeah. Also, I learned recently. I know I'm just dilly-dallying here. For now, we're gonna get started proper in like a minute. For real this time. What? I learned recently that my chair can be adjusted, so I can actually try to have good posture for these streams. I don't need to I don't always need to be so hunched over like that and muffling into the microphone. I can actually have a nice little posture, and my mic will pick up on it a lot better too. It's looking good on OBS's end as well, so I'm pretty happy about that. It looks like you could hear me just fine, Rexus. So, in true fashion, because we're basically kind of starting off with with the Doomer Hour stuff. So that means Silent Hill music, everyone. While I get really pissed off at something. Okay, and I'm also gonna give the context as to what I'm getting pissed off at. Yeah, the Ventathon. Yeah, the Ventathon. You reminded me of the name, Rexus. Thank you so much. The Ventathon. So, let's see. Okay, yeah, music is nice and good. Alrighty. Alrighty, bitches. Let's get this shit started. So, this Sunday, this is when I started hearing, like in my feed constantly, about all the stuff surrounding all the censorship stuff, the UK bill, some of the US bills that have been coming and into the system. So I'm just gonna do a quick little search. No, it's not gonna help. So I have to scroll. Oh wait, actually, I think I could just I'll do an advanced search. ScurvyRum. Yes, okay, I have found the post. I'm going to be going over the post that kind of started this whole thing. So I just got to move myself over a little. Also, notice the little fumo of myself right here. It looks nice. It makes my desk area look nicer. You have my new design and my current design here. MGTOW Phoenix, what's up? How are ya? Visa and MasterCard have been evil since I got the monopoly on payment processing. Big time. We will be talking about that. But this whole thing that I got into was from a post from Kiss Alice. If you don't know who he is, I've actually learned recently that Alice is indeed a guy using a voice changer. He is supposedly a Christian. I got a post from him later on, I got a reply from him saying, "Oh, I am a Christian," but last time I recall, Christians don't actively promote pornography being a good thing. I can recall that very well. Hi, Sheffo, how are you? Why is this homosexual citrus on my screen? So I could actually click the link here. We could see what Alice has to say. Oh, Alice is on private mode. Ooh, he is fucked. He is figgity fucked. In addition to him blocking me as well. So now there's just a post with no context. So I replied with, it was basically him saying that porn shouldn't be censored. In my opinion, I think that's fucking retarded, especially as a Christian. I think I've said it over and over and over again that the pornography industry needs to be burned down to the ground, and that production and distribution of it should be outlawed. And you should get heavily punished for doing so, for trying to erode the moral fabric of society. So I replied with, actually, it does harm you. Adult content harms the soul, and it's one of the worst and it's one of the worst vices a person can have. I see what lust does to people. There's great examples on this site alone, like every day, and it's considered to be one of the 7 deadly sins for a reason. And basically what Alice was saying is that he should have the unimpeded ability to jack off. That's his whole stance. That is his whole stance right there. He doesn't want anybody to interfere on his ability to jack off. And I see quite often on this platform, the effects of that kind of reasoning, and the effects that these clearly visible porn addicts are trying to share to their audience. I'm against corn because my fanfics are considered erotica. That's funny. Always archaeosophy. Order over freedom. I also have argued in this thread, if you want to read through it, because I argue a lot of people in this one. I got quote unquote ratioed or whatever. I don't really care. I still think that my take is objectively correct here, because there's science that backs this up. We have a lot of testimonies from people who were once addicted. Some of my Christian friends, my Christian VTuber pals, they too have also shared with me, stories of when they were going through porn addiction. I'm not going to say names or anything, but it's like I feel for those people. I really do. I'm absolutely grateful I don't have that problem of pornography addiction. Are you saying we should trust the science? That's hilarious. No, but this has been so widely studied at this point. It's like we can make some pretty good conclusions about it. Like, if you were actually arguing that point, it's like you could absolutely repeat those studies. That's very important in the scientific method. But I just got swarmed by a bunch of these, by a lot of these people. I've been blocked by quite a few. There's been some who've had reasonable replies. I'd say this Daikazoku guy. I've seen his posts. Like, yeah, and we had a little bit of a back and forth. Yeah, I'd say he was one of the more reasonable ones. I do agree in the value of self-control. At the same time, it's like, as I know he's not a Christian, but Alice calls himself a Christian. But I don't think he understands that it's not exactly a good thing to intentionally make a fellow brother or sister in Christ stumble. That's a sin in itself. In the Orthodox Church, during liturgy, we, like, a lot of the times during, like, memorial services, we have the phrase, we use the phrase involuntary. I want to focus on the involuntary part of that part of liturgy, because, yeah, you can absolutely unintentionally make somebody stumble. I do think it's up to both people to try to rectify it. It's like, but that's something for you two to deal with in private. It's not something you need to blast to the internet. But that's just me. You know who's been addicted to corn? I know. I don't like women. You're getting married to one, Pickle. But honestly, this leads me to... it might seem like it's a whole lot of nothing right now. I'm just bitching about a post that happened on, like, Sunday. But I basically want to get across that this is basically my stance on pornography, and it kind of does lead into my stance on censorship. Like, these days, I'm not a libertarian. I think libertarianism is just a bunch of bullshit. I don't think people understand how power or how power works. I also think people don't know how censorship should function. Because the thing is, when people make this whole thing of censorship like a black or white issue, right? That's what's happening in the current discourse. So, so let me lay down the context here. So, not that long ago, the UK passed some very, very tyrannical digital ID law. It's already failing in its purpose. And as much as I like the idea of, ID verification for adult websites, similar to how you need to have proper ID when you're buying alcohol, right? If I were to buy something from Bacardi right now, I would need to post proof of ID. That's fine. It's a one-time thing of verification, just like you would buying a bottle of Bacardi at the liquor store. the same thing I think the same thing could be done for pornography websites, one-time verification, and it's not, it's not there for, every time you go on the site, it's one time, you verified every time you want to whack off. Fine, it's not my ideal solution of wanting to burn it down to the ground and outlawing its distribution and production, but it's a start. Kind of a half-hearted start, but it's a start. Damn it, Pickle, trying to ruin my points. That's Pickle for you, everyone. He loves ripping on me. He's my favorite mod, so. Yeah, I'm with you, Rexus. If they really wanted to protect children, they would have just outlawed pornography. So that's why I call it half-hearted. It's not really meant. It's not really going to protect children, and we're already seeing that like kids are exploiting the system as it is. Like they're posting, pictures of Gmod or Norman Reedus from Death, in his appearance in Death Stranding to bypass this. It's a really shitty system that England is doing, and I bet the migrants don't have to worry about this. That's something else too we have to remember. The modern day UK is a two-tiered society, and one that punishes its natives far more than it does its immigrant population, for sure. I'll assume the pixelated orange is just meant to fill empty space. Yes, it is actually. Yes, it is. Think of it as like my watermark had just moved up top instead of on the bottom right. Anyways, I do think it's ultimately a shitty, half-hearted effort that isn't actually going to protect anyone. That's been my stance. Maybe not initially when I saw it from Podcasts On, from his post, and he's been getting a lot of shit for his stance on pornography, and people are trying to just start smear campaigns against my friend, which that pissed me off, like, very well. But the thing is, like, yeah, I agree with the bill on the surface as it was advertised, but it's not actually doing that. It's far from it. People are finding all sorts of exploits. Clearly, they did not think this through very well at all. For digital surveillance, it's rather shitty. El Sheffo is one of your mods, Scurvy. I blocked him on my stream because I thought he was trolling. Wow. Unblock him, Arch. He's cool. He's just weird, but he's cool. I've been friends with him for a long time. Yeah, and that pixelated orange is made by Sire Denathorus. He likes to pop in the chat every now and then. Anyways. But then, what really started to get people spurging, to try to continue to weave a narrative out of this, what really got people spurging was the COSA bill. So on Wednesday, my good friend and co-host of the King's Council podcast, Okairo, he actually went through both the screen bill and the COSA bill. And this is what he found, and he's been having his own back and forths with stupid people in regards to them not understanding anything about how this law actually works, what's in it, and all that. And so he wrote, no idea why it X cut off all words I posted for this. This is me going over the stuff for COSA. Give it a read, look at the screenshots, and be amazed at people are panicking over absolute bullshit. The only part of this bill is the COSA Council section, and that's like a cartoony evil kind of way. So I did bookmark this post so we could actually take a look as to what he linked. So let's see if we scroll down. So he screenshotted section 102, plenty of 103, 104. So he basically is just screenshotting just all the things. I'll actually post the link to this in the stream chat, so if you guys want to read along, you can. Alrighty, so that posted. Where are we? Yep, here we are. So he's definitely been receiving a lot of flack for just saying that this bill is actually too good to be passed. That's what's that's what's gonna happen. Like, the bill is too good to pass. The bill is just way too good to pass. The reason why I say that is because there are sections in it that focus on, stopping predatory microtransactions, making these tech companies actually disclose how their algorithms work. Those are the two that I keep referencing, and those are objectively good things. Like, I don't want the video games that I play to just be monetized to high hell and back. I want a good product. The same thing with these social media platforms. It's like, I think we very much should know how these algorithms work, and then we all just fucking leave them. Because chances are, when we find out, we've just been played this whole time. Now, the bill is too Israeli coded. And yeah, it's not like I haven't looked into that part either. The whole, because both bills, they are written by people who are being funded very much by AIPAC. For the Screen Act, the guy is like 380K funded by the Israel lobby. And for the KOSA Act, the bitch who wrote that is almost 600K funded by the Israel lobby. I get your concerns, and I share those concerns too, especially when it comes to the algorithm part. As much as I want to learn, it's like, are they gonna try to use it to stifle noticing? That's a good thing too. But with the Screen Act, that's not gonna pass because it's far too vague. It's far too broad, it encompasses too much, and it's far too vague. So people are just, mainly libertarians, are just making giant mountains out of molehills. And then there's also, speaking of the libertarians, there's also the whole thing that's been going on with, PayPal getting rid, payment processors getting rid of, porn games on Steam. Now, I don't think the payment processors should have that kind of power. And they are using Collective Shout as an arm of enforcement, something that they should not be able to do. But I very much agree that, there should not be, porn games on Steam, or NSFW, NSFL games on Steam, or itch, for the sole fact that minors have access to that. Okay? It's not that hard. However, that's all the libertarians seem to be focusing on, is their ability to jack off. And I'm just like, are you fucking kidding me? Are you really? Is that what you're so concerned about, your ability to jack off? Really? Yeah, minors shouldn't have access to the internet, period. I 100% agree, Archaeosophy. By the time I have kids and they're being homeschooled, the only time they're ever going to have internet access is under strict supervision from me, or my wife, and, well, I'm not married yet. I don't even have a girlfriend, but you get my point. And when they're done with their homeschooling lessons, they are going to, they're not going to have access to it. I'm going to lock away that computer. I still have access to my own machine, but then again, I'm an adult, so I can. But we have a post here from Master of the TDS reminding the libertarian crowd what they really should be focusing on. I will repeat this for the third time. If you are still spending your energy going after Collective Shout, you are refusing to see the bigger issue. Collective Shout was used as a shield. I would say Collective Shout is used as a sword and a shield, mainly because Collective Shout, has basically targets something, and then the credit card companies enforce their will based on the sword strikes. And then when when Visa or MasterCard tries to starts to get some flack, it's like, oh no guys, it's the feminists that are doing this. It's like, yeah, they are. However, the real enforcers are MasterCard and Visa. They're not really libertarians. They're basically socialists. Socialism was described as a middle ground between communism and capitalism. Same centrism with the right wing and left wing. This was back in 1870 to 1940. Yep, right on the money, Rexus. They are the ones who decide what gets funded, what gets censored, and what platforms are allowed to survive. If you're angry, take your comments to them. Now, I will say, again, I'm going to repeat myself again, it's good, every now and then, evil will do something stupid that benefits good. Case in point, Collective Shout getting Steam to remove the porn games and Itch to stop having NSFW shit on their platform. Now, I will say Itch went too far in removing that stuff from people's library, and then we get into the conversation of ownership of digital items, which I'm very much of the stance that if you get something digitally, you own it. None of that license shit. But Collective Shout, as evil as they are, because they are feminists, let's not forget that. Feminists are our enemy. They fucked up by doing something good. I see it as God using evil people to fulfill a good end. But that was the only good thing that they did. And everything else after that, of course they're going too far. They're feminists. That's their whole MO. They're going to do that. That's just what they do. They've been doing that ever since the movement started. They love taking things too far. But ultimately, with everybody bitching at Collective Shout, that just means that the credit card companies are not gonna be able to get away with with the bullshit that they've been doing. And keep in mind, when it comes to the payment processors, they've been fucking over Christians for a long time. Same with the UK government. So for any of the centrist libertarian types who might be watching this, don't give me that crap of, oh, they're gonna come after stuff you like. They already have. That's their whole thing. They're very good at doing that. We Christians are already censored across the internet. Even on X. Which actually, before we get on with kind of the first video in our guided tour that shows just how retarded these centrist libertarians are, I want to bring up a post from my friend Piercing Heaven. So he's also been very much involved in this debate as well. I use debate in quotes. And he has also, it seems that he has also encountered the Kiss Alice types of Christians. You should but also the atheist libertarians too. You should let porn companies exploit children because Jesus said you should make good choices in the Bible, and somehow that means, let's see. Somehow that means adults having the right to goon, unfettered, regardless of risk to children. No, I'm not a Christian, and I have nothing but contempt for your backwards religious beliefs. So yeah, this argument wouldn't work on me, but maybe if I use it on you, you'll do what I want. That's the thing, the libertarians that I've been in arguments with on this matter, they do not understand about power. They don't understand anything about it. They don't know that it's top down. They think they actually have a voice in this. But no, it's just a bunch of spurging. It really is. It's just a bunch of spurging from adult children who can't accept the fact that you have responsibilities to your society as well. Okay? And the thing is, these spurgs still keep on spurging. And it's been like this for the past fucking week. I swear. They own nothing and are happy. Incorrect, Rex. That's correct. Boy. I guess I still have some, honestly, I thought I'd be seeing red. Honestly, I'm just more kind of tired of it all. Like, I think my anger has reached, like, a zenith, so to speak. There's always going to be something that pisses me off from the libertarian crowd, especially when I say that, especially when I say some of the positions that I have. Oh yeah, there's one thing I forgot to mention too. I don't trust the UK government or the US government to properly enforce something like these bills. Really, I think the only type of government that could actually do a proper pornography ban, burn, I mean, not just ban, but burn, would be a Christian monarchy. Well, for me, because I'm Orthodox, I would say Orthodox Christian monarchy. They would actually, that kind of government would actually be able to deal with the problem. And with the use of force, I might add. I very much am a fan of that. Let's see, I got a DM from Ark on Twitter. Would you be willing to have me on? I have the thought of the very concept of laws. What say you guys? I could pause the Silent Hill music and I could have Archaeosophy on for a little bit. What say you guys? If that somehow fails, we go back to 1933. Bridget can't possibly be a woman. Ah, man, that was a funny fan fiction we wrote, Pickle. Yeah, actually, let me just respond to you, Arch. Want to hop on now? I can have you on for a few minutes before continue. Alrighty. Oh, what happened, Arch? He just needs to get it set up. But chat's good. Chat's all good. They want you on. If that's the case, I guess we could go to the after show here. Because I'd rather not have. I want this thing to at least somewhat look nice. Okay, yeah, that's good. Then I'm also just gonna check my notifications. See who wanted to join. Let's see. So I'm just waiting for. I don't want him on, and I am chat. Well, too bad, Pickle. Fuck you, Marty. Archaeosophy is coming on the show, bitch. I'm joking with the 1933 part. That's the reason why some people say I give off Nazi vibes. But yeah, just waiting for Archaeosophy to. Okay. All right. Also, let me just see my Discord voice settings. Yep, just waiting on you, Arch. Hi, Arch. How are you?
Sorry. I keep forgetting I need to get off the browser and open Discord, the app. So that's why I'm always slow to get on. I'm doing good. How are you?
I'm doing good. I've just been ranting. Though honestly, it seems like having just ranted about this subject to myself so much, it's just like I thought I'd be fuming with rage, but I guess I'm not. But I want to hear your opinions on laws. I think the chat does too.
So it kind of occurred to me actually a few minutes ago, like watching you. The concept of laws is starting to seem kind of ridiculous to me now, because in a proper system, which is monarchy, everyone in the hierarchy is just an extension of everyone above them. So, like, lords are an extension of the king, and so on, all the way down to serfs. Like, no matter where you are in the hierarchy, you're an extension of the one above you, of the person above you. And we were talking on my stream about how monarchy is a more personal system, just naturally a more personal system. Anyway, putting these thoughts together, I realized you have laws when you don't have a coherent society. And the more laws, or the less unified your society is, the more laws you need.
True.
When everyone, like a father's, children are an extension of their father, and he just, like, the children just know the rules of the house, right? And politics can be the same way when it comes to power structures. Like, maybe have a few things written down, but for the most part, we know what the rules are, and that's just how we operate. Those are my thoughts on laws. Like, we only have them because we don't have, we're not as unified as we should be. Yeah.
I see. There is so much to just go over with that, because, like, especially in the case of a low trust society like ours, in American society in the current day, we live in a highly legalized system where everything can be used against anyone. You could make a case for any bullshit reason. Doesn't matter that, it could be, like, think about, like, all the false allegation cases that, like, I see quite frequently on my timeline. Or just, like, guys getting falsely accused for, doing things to women that they didn't do, but the courts are so biased against men. It's like, that's very much a consequence of living in a highly litigious society. Nobody wants to talk to each other, and that absolutely does impact societal cohesion. If nobody wants to talk to each other, how do we, do what we need to do as humans? Reproduce, build things. How do we do that when everything can be made into a lawsuit?
Yeah, we are not creatures of laws. We are social creatures. We're personal creatures. And there is a way to operate societies without so many pieces of paper. Yep. And besides, like, you only have two options, like either make laws simple or make them complicated. If they're too simple, then they don't cover enough. And if they're too complicated, they cover too much. They never cover it's never just right. For example, the First Amendment. You see people try to attach porn to the First Amendment.
Yes.
Like, even though First Amendment was talking about speech.
So archaeosophy. So you're telling me that Riley Reid going gluck, gluck, gluck she's not actually saying anything? What? I can't believe this.
But there's nothing. I don't think there's anything in the Constitution that says no porn.
As a matter of fact, our country, if you were to say to, like, the founding fathers that free speech would eventually cover pornography, they would cause quite the ruckus, to say the least. If you brought them to the present day, they would cause
probably
quite the ruckus.
But it just goes back to how the founding fathers were morons, because they tried to. It's all utopia.
Yep.
I mean, this country has always been a left-wing system. I don't get how anyone thinks otherwise. It's always been a left-wing country. We've only moved further to the left over time. But, like, again, with
we lurched over to the left.
But back to the analogy of, like, the household. You would just simply know. without anything written down, you would know, okay, there's no porn allowed in this household. Duh. And it can be the same way with an entire society. When the power structure is a lot more personal, you just know things and you don't need to write them down. But the more you need to write things down, the more tyrannical it becomes. And you also notice you're missing things still. No matter how many pieces of paper you add to it, you're still missing stuff. Like,
Always.
okay, now we have to throw porn into the mix. What do we do about this? And
Oy vey, goy. Well, wouldn't you know?
it's unsustainable.
Us tribes of Israel have always been, the ones to lead the way into societal exploits. That's something else too that I don't think many people know. It's like the whole porn industry is Jewish, and by giving these people money, you are indeed trying to continue Shekel's rule over land that does not belong to them. I mean, you know that OnlyFans donates a large portion of its money to the IDF, right?
Doesn't surprise me.
I mean, you know who founded OnlyFans, right?
Well, yeah.
So,
And no matter what your opinion is on the small hats, the fact remains that even with a state, the state of Israel, even with a state, they still operate as if they are a stateless people. Mm-hmm. So literally all they do, even when they have a state to go to, is infest. They infest societies. That's just an objective fact. They are their own group that inhabit other groups. That's an objective fact.
Oy vey, fellow whites. No, I'm not white. I'm Jewish.
So how could you ever expect them to believe in, strong borders and whatnot?
Well,
they've
that only goes one way.
Survived entirely off of open borders for 2,000 years at least.
But they don't want open borders for Israel. Huh, that's so weird, don't you think?
Yeah, every tribe is allowed.
Works.
Every tribe is allowed to be tribal except whites. Except the tribes you don't like, of course.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we can't even exactly say we can't even just say it's just whites, even though truth be told, it mainly is just whites.
Yeah. And why is it whites? We all know the answer.
Yep, we all do.
When everything is power, and whites are the only ones not allowed to do things, like you're admitting you're admitting the harsh truth right there.
Basically.
Anyway, those are my thoughts on laws. Like, we only have laws in the first place, really, because over centuries we've become increasingly detached from each other. Yeah, it doesn't have to be this way. And so that's also why I've been like, I haven't entirely been paying attention to these bills. Because I just look at them and I'm like, we don't need fucking bills. Like, I just hate this system. I'm sick of all of it.
We need to just burn the porn industry down to the ground. That's what needs to happen. I am sick of, and for me, I am just sick of the liberal world order. I am sick of everything it represents. I am sick of what it tries to push onto people. I am sick of the results that such a system would create. And I just want it all burned. I'm like Spoon. I want it all burned because I'm not benefiting from it. Many young guys are not benefiting from it. It's only just causing immense societal decay because that's what it was always meant to do. At first, it was like, oh wow, society is progressing, technology is developing, but there's consequences to that. There always is, cause and effect.
Yeah, change does, like, I don't know how anyone believes change itself is good simply because it is. Oh, something changed, therefore it's good. I don't understand that logic.
Yeah,
and I see all of our problems as just symptoms from a common source. It's the reason I'm obsessed with monarchy, and I'm not ashamed of it, because that would fix everything. It would fix our families. It would fix our laws. We would barely even need laws. We would hardly need anything written down. It would fix everything. It wouldn't create a utopia, but it would fix problems we don't need to have. At that point, when we have the system correct, the only problems we run into is drama. Just like stupid, Game of Thrones type drama. But we don't need like serial killers or murders of any kind getting away with it because the law, technically the way the law is written, we have to let them go.
we have to. But I think now I'm gonna get into a really retarded video that I found that's been shared quite frequently. Even among people that I actually like their takes, but I guess everybody has bad takes every now and then. But
yeah,
it's a video from Chibi Reviews, and no, he's very much the centrist libertarian type. I only follow him because I sympathize with the fact that his detractors are fucking nuts, but that's about it. He pisses me off most of the time he writes something, so
all right, let's watch it. I'm gonna log off though.
Alrighty. So I'm just gonna get my the video set up right here.
All right. I'll keep watching though.
And it sounds good.
Yeah.
Except Sheffo. Sheffo's never wrong. So we have this video from Chibi Reviews. No doubt this is gonna get me all fired up and angry. I don't think we're gonna watch this whole thing. I just want to illustrate a point with this before we get to what I actually want to talk about, the title of this stream. But Chibi Reviews is mainly focusing on just the surface level of everything. He is very much a slop tuber, like Smash JQ or a lot of the other, Gamergate 2 personalities. But he is going to be making quite the dumbass comparison. And Dusty, you would know, he's talking about Shimoneta, a show that you've seen. And from what you told me, he gets everything wrong.
However, due to changing social conditions, especially increasing requests from credit card companies and payment providers...
Oh, I didn't catch... I was kind of looking down. I didn't catch that this was from Pixiv. Oh, man, that site's full of degenerate shit. Good. Honestly, Pixiv should be shut down, if you ask me. The things that I've learned about that website, and I know it's like an artist forum, but people are using it to trade, very, very bad things. Very, things that are legally not good to have.
The cost of reviewing R18 content has continued to rise. As a result, it has become difficult to maintain our current fee structure while continuing to offer the same level of service.
Damn it, Pickle!
The bad news doesn't stop there. We also have this. Due to local laws, we are temporarily restricting access to this content until X estimates your age. But don't worry, it doesn't stop there. We also have this. You
could, if you want to get past that, you could always get verified. That's the thing, when you pay for that blue check mark on Twitter, you are giving a form of identification. Credit debit cards are a form of identification because they could be traced back to somebody.
UK
very hard to do
Online
that.
Safety Act takes effect.
I hate it. I hate his voice. Yeah, his voice is very grating on my ears too.
Today, users must verify identity with a third party and scan their face to access adult content online. Proposed screen time limits require age verification for video games exceeding 2 hours.
Pirate Nation, are you gonna have a lengthy thread posting the screenshots of where you could find that written in the law? I don't deny that it's in there, but I just like to have a little bit of standard of proof here. You are supposedly a journalist. Is that not what you are? Well, actually, I know a thing or two about Pirate Nation. EGAT actually made a damn good video in regards to Claire, whatever that game is called, the French Paper Mario, the French Paper Mario game, whatever it's called, Expedition 33. Yeah, these guys are very much linked to just promoting just whatever outrage is currently popular. That's their whole thing. It's not even one person, it's multiple people. Pirate Nation.
Hours. I'll talk more about this in a second. It's very important. Non-compliance fines up to 18 million euro or 10% revenue. Sites may be blocked.
My guy, that's not the euro sign, that's the pound sign.
Access to porn games, niche gaming forums, or non-state approved content will be restricted.
And of everything, it's that line right there. That is actually the concerning part, is non-state approved content. What does that mean? That might have been your responsibility, Pirate Nation, to maybe explain what that was, instead of just trying to drum up outrage for the sake of drumming up outrage.
Platforms like Pornhub, Discord, Reddit, and Grindr are...
Discord better be fucking compliant. So much grooming has happened on that platform alone.
compliant. Ofcom investigates 4chan, which may face Cloudflare block under court order. From my understanding, 4chan's already blocked today, so yeah, it has been blocked. Aims to prevent kids from accessing harmful social media content like porn. So, let's get right in.
Oh, let's see, Chibi. How are you gonna justify this? Because you're one of the faggots who is making this a black and white issue. So let me actually explain what I mean by that. Censorship is a very, very nuanced issue. I would say I'm pro-censorship to a point. I think you have to do it within reason. And within reason, that's stuff like, pornography, mainly stuff like that, NSFW, NSFL stuff. That is okay, how do I explain this? The alcohol's already starting to get to my head. Something like Berserk would not be banned. The imagery that it uses has a purpose. It's trying to tell a story. Berserk would not be banned. But, hentai made, that's made, with Berserk characters, that would be censored. That would not be allowed. Sorry, Chud, I'm playing Nike. I love white women. Anyways, so it would be stuff like that would be censored. Stuff that is clearly obscene. It's not actually trying to say anything. Rants has a pretty good story. Yeah, I know who you're talking about, Pickle. I know. He went again. He's actually his character is trying to tell a story, and it's not like I don't think he's from like a hentai game or whatnot. But again, in my opinion, some things should be censored, other things shouldn't be. One thing's for sure, I think leftist beliefs should be censored and punished for expressing, or just stupid beliefs that go against Christianity. In eroge. Ah, fuck, it's a Japanese term I gotta look up. Explicit, often, okay, so it's just, so is he actually from a porn game? The main gameplay Rance is from a smut game. Oh, fuck, he's based, but he's gotta go, under my standards, gotta go. He will forever live on in screenshots, though. Those quotes are too based.
Into this. So first off, before I really dive into this whole bombshell and talk about how it extends way beyond just, let's say, goon content, and this, if you don't know who this is one of the biggest leakers and, speakers for ReZero online, and he talks about the situation that it's much more than, goon content, adult content that is being censored.
Yo, ReZero getting banned? Let's go!
with that UK Safety Act that came out today. He talks about how it's going to be affecting fiction and just, stuff that, is not real whatsoever, kind of continuing the trend of what we've seen.
Being vague, are we, Chibi? One of your specialties.
From payment processors, but I'll get into this in a second. I want to talk about Pixiv, because it's very quick, and I can kind of get this out of the way very quickly.
Yeah, I wonder why you talk about Pixiv.
So Pixiv is not ground zero, but very close to ground zero in terms of content being censored or forced to bend the knee to some degree.
I mean, you could fill in the blanks, though. It's still fair to ask, well, what content on Pixiv is being censored? Do tell me, Chibi.
Like a year plus ago by payment processors like Visa and MasterCard. I made a video talking about this basically over a year ago, but it's an old story that they've already been affected. We've already known that they've been hit for a while, but what this is an update apparently in June.
ReZero being a shit anime where the protagonist suffers needlessly for a woman who doesn't care about him.
Almost a month ago. I didn't even hear about this, but it got brought to my attention, and that's why I'm bringing it up now, and a lot of people might be completely unaware of this, so that's why I'm spreading it. But basically, Pixiv, because of how payment processors are offering and how they're doing certain charges or fees and different things like that, it's causing...
What charges and what fees? Like, look, I know that I'm reacting to your video right now, and this whole thing is... that I'm doing, this stream, is unscripted. Hell, even my videos are unscripted, but I at least try to do some research on my videos, so I try not to be vague. Like, really, only time I'm vague is because if I want to, like, avoid YouTube censorship. But that's besides the point. But, Chibi, if you consider yourself some kind of reporter or commentator... yeah, you might want to explain what's actually happening. It's already driving me fucking nuts.
The cost of basically maintaining R18 content and reviewing the content, it's becoming more expensive thanks to how Visa and MasterCard have such a monopoly. They're draining them dry. And so they're having to raise the fees on the site just to be able to...
Probably the one point I agree with you there, Chibi. Yeah, these credit card companies are a monopoly. But I don't think he's going to get into, the consequences of that very much.
Maintain the same level of quality and service because it's getting so astronomically high because obviously Visa and MasterCard is choking Pixiv out of anything they possibly can. So, once again, about power, about control, about assuming control over other companies, that's what's going on. But basically...
Well, who gave control... Who gave control to the credit card companies in the first place?
This is an old story. Like, this is old news, technically.
Oligopoly. Well, what's that term?
It's like about a month ago,
like
but a lot of people are unaware of this. I just found out about this, so I'm making sure more people are. Now, with that being said, we gotta talk about the elephant in the room, which is this. So, let's begin.
The elephant in the...
If you ever wanted proof that we're living in dark times, then look no further than what's happened in just the last week alone. Obviously, the story of censorship and payment processors assuming control over many sites are forcing Japan to bend the knee.
Wait, this is on Discord? That's hilarious. That's hilarious.
Back
I never thought
Discord
ago.
And there's even stuff probably I'm unaware of that came before that. But the big point is, in the last week alone, we have definitely seen a massive acceleration of censorship all across the world.
Define censorship, Chibi. What's being covered up? Is it hardcore noticing? Is it pornography? You actually have to define what that is.
To what Cashapp did with payment processors, causing Steam to remove hundreds of...
Well, yeah, Dusty, you're right on the money, my friend. Right on the money. It's everything he doesn't like. If Japan doesn't bend the knee. They pay for online purchases at physical stores. Meg's love for Family Mart comes from that. She can pay for her gacha games there. That and her chicken. She loves that chicken right there. Yeah, it's not things that are actually being censored, like noticing. It's like I keep on repeating myself.
Games to what happened with itch.io, removing their entire adult game catalog, housing thousands of games, and people losing their games, not being able to either download them, losing their revenue. It literally put thousands of...
Not being able to again, you know, I already discussed that earlier, but it's just trying to reverse
without jobs, without the ability to make money.
Good. Those who create smut shouldn't be working anyways. I don't trust them to function in a regular society
Anymore.
Execution.
And so many games come from itch.io, so many indie games that eventually branch out and become colossal hits with so many content creators. It was a massive blow what happened the other day, and it is just, it's insane to see a site like that get hit so freaking hard. But obviously, it goes much further than that. Today, we have the UK Online Safety Act that officially came into effect. Now, I'm going to be completely blunt. I don't live in the UK. I live in the United States, and I obviously, thankfully, don't have to deal with this. But it is very important to talk about because the situation here obviously showcases an acceleration of society and what is obviously growing. It's a growing trend as of late, and I think everybody is starting to see it. There is this acceleration with many different organizations and groups and stuff to force censorship and control over fictional content. And
what fictional content? Gotta define that, Mr. Journalist.
And what we are clearly seeing here is that. And I want to talk about, in general, what this Online Safety Act is doing. Pirate Nation outlined this, and there's some things I want to talk about here, but basically, he brought up all...
So he's basically just going to be going over this, but I'm going to skip to the part, because I'm just going to skip to the part where he just brings up Shimonetta. Like, this is... I thought my videos were shit.
Figure out if they're having the wrong think. The wrong thoughts, for instance, that don't align with what they want. You know what we currently have going on right now? Shimonetta. We actually have sped run a Shimonetta reality.
No, we have not, and I'll tell you why. Dusty can also tell you why as well. Shimonetta is actually about Korean feminism. And how, and if you know a thing or two about Korean feminism, yeah, it's fucking nutty. It really is fucking nutty. But at the same time, is he really comparing Christians to feminists? I feel like that's what he's trying to do here. Because a lot of the people who have been pushing back against these bullshit libertarian ideas have been Christians who have been very much consistent in their beliefs. Pickle's talking about his own emperorship. Once the green regime takes over, Trinity of Glass and Juice Worth the Squeeze will be mandatory reading at all schools alongside the Bible and Blood Meridian. The Juice Worth the Squeeze, that's my book. That's my book, in case you're wondering. And Trinity of Glass is Sheffo's book. Anyways.
It's so...
Korean feminism is so fucking nutty. Literally, it's a cult. It's quite literally a cult. That's who runs the South Korean government, and they're basically speed running. They're speed running the demise of that country. That's what Shimonetta is actually commentating on. Is that
so insane to me that we are living in a year that is so close to Shimonetta actually being reality that it's sickening. Like,
because because I don't think it's a Christian monarchy is not going to go that far in making a device that that prevents you from moving around. They're not going to do that. A Protestant one might. Or, one of the weirder, the Jehovah's Witnesses or the Seventh-day Adventists, but those guys are not Christian. Though, in a Christian monarchy, yeah, sorry, you won't have access to pornography anymore. but I'd say that's a good thing. Honestly, I'm gonna stop the video here because if I continue, I'm gonna go crazy. But I will say this in terms of the whole idea of freedom. No, us humans, we are not meant to, we do not like having total natural freedom. Like, I assume, we're all adults in here. We have all seen videos of how nature actually works. It's pretty brutal. We do not want that as humans. We like order. We like stability. We like a whole lot of other things that society provides for us. If we were to live in the state of natural freedom, it would be the end of the species. And that's basic in a way, our government, but also the South Korean government, is trying to get us back to a weird state of natural freedom. Because the thing is, what I realized, just a bit of a shower thought that I had, that I said to, Okairo's server in regards to, so Scurvy, it was actually because I was responding to a post from the Archcast, and he said, "Rare L for the Roach King here. Tyranny is never truly inevitable. It only appears so before action is taken, or too often not taken to stop it." And I said, counterpoint, we've been living in both tyranny and anarchy for the past century. We're free to pursue hedonism, but not virtue, and we're stifled by pursuing virtue by the government at all times. A society where virtue properly understood cannot be pursued is always tyranny. A society where sexual liberation is valued above all else is anarchy. Scurvy Goon. Every man is forced to wear a damn monitor device and it's always listening and reporting to the cops. Referring to Spoon about in a Christian monarchy. I see. But yeah, that one. So what Dusty wrote out there, that does happen in the show. That would not happen in a proper Christian monarchy. Exactly, Pickle. That's also true. It's men and women. This shows that feminism destroys everyone. Not Spoon. Sorry, I'm retarded. I was referring to Scurvy, not Spoowoon. I know Spoowoon is also doing a stream with Amalgamite. I wish I was on that, but that's Spurgin out for another side. The only lasting effect of BLM was the George Droid meme. We're talking George Droid and it's fucking throwing me off. But honestly, these people have pissed me off that it's just like, I feel like they've lost the plot. I wonder how they lost the plot. It just so happens that I have a video from What the Egad here about exactly that. How libertarians have lost the plot. Ooh, that's a nice little transition I did there. So, I guess before we do, I'll be right back. I'm gonna take a shot of rum. I'm not drunk enough for this shit yet. And then we'll get started. I also have a can of gin seltzer here, so I'll be sipping on that. This song is perfection, sir. Hello, sir. Okay, now let's get into EGAD's video, shall we? We actually have a bunch of these to get through tonight. So, this Negro drinking gin. Christians historically haven't ever done things like what's depicted in the show, and Chibi wants to falsely equivocate the damn show with a Christian swing against X-rated content. Anthony Gramuglia, what about him? Anyways, let's get started.
So in recent days, we have seen the sanitization of Steam, seen most clearly through the growing control of payment processors. And all this has exposed a theological reality that must be remarked upon. The libertarian response to these developments has been intellectually shallow and morally ineffective. You can see people rushing to platforms like X and YouTube trying to preserve the illusion of resistance, but you have to remember, these platforms themselves are not neutral spaces. They're just borrowed altars built within foreign temples. And all the speech they claim is free has long been since permitted by a system governed by idolatry. You see,
Exactly, EGAD. There's a reason why when I bring up the Overton window, that it's just a bunch, like, it's the Overton window has shifted so far to the left that anybody who expresses actual right-wing ideas gets pushback. Heavy pushback. So, the Overton window right now, far left. So, you have the farthest of the far left. Then you have the far left, which is kind of like in the center, and then you have the left, which is the most right in this Overton window. Anything outside of that Overton window, you express anything that's outside of that, you're gonna get pushback, like I have, like I showed in the beginning. Actual right wingers do not want pornography to proliferate in society. They do not want it to be there in the fucking first place.
Payment processors function as more than just facilitators of commerce. They're expressions of authority.
EGAD is 100% correct there.
For as long as they've been around, they have governed access, established legitimacy, and defined what behavior is or is not acceptable. And nowhere has that been made any more clear than in the area of pornography. And as we know, corporate platforms do not simply allow it, they depend on it. Pornography is structurally embedded in the architecture of the modern web. The internet is indeed for porn.
It's like what that old song says. Alexa, play Holy Orders. Tell VTubers that if they're sick of not finding a man, they need to submit. Oh yes, Dusty, that was... So, there was a clip of Kirsha, being all pissy about Dusty here, my viewer, telling her no hymen, no diamond, and to submit to a man, and she fucking flipped out. I find that so funny. you made my Oshi mad, and I find it hilarious.
Now, we've seen many decry organizations like Collective Shout for asserting control over these systems. Yet what people fail to realize is that everyone whining about this would have nothing to cry about if they were not already enslaved by their vices. In other words, the power structures that enforce these restrictions are only made possible because so much freedom has already been surrendered in exchange for indulgence. We have built the bars of our own cages. And this process has been meticulous, but that...
Yep, and there have been many verses in the Bible of, when you abandon him, he will lead you, your vices will basically take the lead.
That's how these things work. Sin is pernicious. It creeps its way in. Now, as we know, the typical internet user is disciplined by the algorithm. He organizes his days by sexual stimulation, not by spiritual formation. He is taught not by sermons, but by endless doom scrolling. He is trained to consume without covenant, to desire without restraint, and to love without labor. And at the heart of this digital and moral crisis lies idolatry. Now, Scripture is unambiguous in its condemnation of idols, false gods who demand worship but deliver only bondage. And of course, God opposes idolatry.
Our vices are absolutely... People tend to put many things in that idol position, pornography being one of them. I would also argue freedom as well. And like I argued earlier, we are not meant to be living in natural freedom. It's actually antithetical to the human condition. We really do not thrive well in that kind of environment. We are social creatures, as they would say, and that's absolutely the case.
Idolatry because it violates his rightful lordship over all of creation. And when men exchange the truth of God for a lie, as Paul writes in Romans chapter 1, they don't gain freedom, they become enslaved. And therefore idolatry in essence is the path to slavery. And that's why God hands people over to their sinful desires. It's not simply an arbitrary punishment, but it is also a measured act of divine discipline. You see, by allowing men to pursue their idols unchecked, God exposes the emptiness of those false gods. And the slavery that results, the bondage to sin and corruption, it's all intended to reveal the chains that bind us, and thereby awaken the soul to its desperate need for repentance and deliverance. Pornography and the endless dopamine loops of the internet are contemporary manifestations of this ancient reality. They are indeed idols that promise pleasure but deliver captivity. The digital age is...
He does have a point. Egad absolutely has a point about that. I could be spending less time on Twitter myself. Soon, that's gonna happen by the time I get my new rig. I don't think I'd be spending so much time on Twitter because I'd probably just be doing a lot of gaming.
Has not abolished idolatry, it's refined it, made it ever more insidious and pervasive. And people are not free when they are enslaved to their lustful impulses, those facilitated by our current corporate interests. Instead, we all now live under divine judgment. And unfortunately, many counting themselves as the vanguard of culture war resistance are centrist libertarians. They are controlled opposition, offering no real...
Exactly. All they do, as Archaeosophy would put it actually, all they do is just point out symptoms. They don't actually want anything to be solved. Even though they might say that, they want these issues to be solved. No, they don't. No, they don't. Because what would happen if things were solved overnight? They'd be out of a job. Also, hold on. I'll be right back. Sorry for the interruption. I'll be a minute. Okay, I'm back, fellas. Sorry about that. Because let's see. When I suggest the only cure is monarchy, I'm treated like an asshole because I'm so weak. I need a strong government. Such a strong government that would ensure things run smoothly and state security and prosperity has an incentive to be maintained. Correct, Dusty, correct.
Real resistance to the present crisis. They are people whose worldview is built on borrowed capital. They continually seek the fruits of a moral order while refusing to submit to the God who sustains it. For theirs...
Man, So many of these centrist libertarian types, they love quoting the Bible out of context. That's kind of their whole bread and butter, is just, oh, well, you're not supposed to judge. Yeah, actually, as Christians, we are supposed to judge righteously. We are not, in terms of the whole, don't judge is false judgment of stuff like slander or false accusations. That's why when a Christian makes a judgment, it's supposed to be based on evidence. No pickle. No pull making for that. Christ is king of all creation. Cry harder. Scurvy, you want to know what enrages Gooners? Ooh, do tell me, Rexus. I'm interested. Post it.
Yours is a vision of freedom that is truncated. Freedom from constraint, but never through righteousness. And so their adherents enjoy the benefits of Christian assumptions about justice, about personhood and rights, yet they reject the covenantal structure from which all those assumptions arise. Now, much of what passes for libertarian pushback is not resistance at all. It's all performance. Their voices flood platforms with commentary, with analysis, and righteous indignation, but none of it works to build anything that truly lasts.
It's not designed, like, if you really think about what libertarians want, a society where everybody leaves each other alone, that's very similar to communism in terms of its rhetoric. If everyone does X, but it's like, no, that's not how society works. That's a fucking pipe dream. I used to be naive in thinking that was the case. I learned for the better that it's not. Okay, sorry, I lost my train of thought for a second. I realized that it's like, oh shit, it's like we actually have, we as people actually have duties and responsibilities to do. Like we're not just atomized individuals. Like that was very red pilling for me. But okay, I think Rexus DM'd it to me. Shitpost makes fun of porn. Gamblers for the W. Turn down the volume. Gotcha. Fence the Fent head. Wait, Fuentes does fentanyl? That's news to me. Anyways, I'm gonna try to get my train of thought back.
For their true aim is engagement. Like the culture they claim to critique, they too are governed by the algorithm. Their outrage is monetized, and their dissent is commodified. And they don't intend to challenge the system at its root. Instead, they want your likes, your comments, and your subscriptions. They want to...
It's all a grift, basically. I do not trust any of these people with the reins of power. They lack the IQ to rule properly, and their whole motivation is just money. That's all they want is money. There's a reason why I stopped watching many of these centrist libertarians, unless it's for me to just rip them to shreds. It's because it's like I see that they're just doing all this for money. Oh yeah, he LARPs as one as much as Babylon B LARPs as a Christian site. That's honestly true. The few times where Fuentes actually expresses like real Christian beliefs, it's like that's when he gets the most pushback from his degenerate Groiper audience. There's a reason I don't watch anyone political anymore, unless it's Archaeosophy, Scurvy, or Spoon, or EGAD. Ah, shucks, I didn't know I was on that list. I don't think I deserve to be on that list, tell you the truth, Dusty. I'm very much a retard. When it comes to this stuff, I can only provide so much insight.
Cultivate a growing audience for the next video or their next expo.
Like, EGAD is he clearly has a higher IQ than me, so.
And in the words of my good friend AGT Infinity, libertarians are simply liberals who dislike taxes. They affirm the products of Christian civilization, but they reject the foundation. They criticize authority.
Well, oh hey, it's me, V. It's me, V, and you know what? Fuck you, Christianity. It brought communism to Russia, even though it was actually the Jews who brought communism to Russia. Stalin is totally orthodox. He's very much orthodox Christian, so I have to disregard orthodox Christian. Scurvy. How is my V impersonation? It's pretty good. I think that was pretty good. I haven't done a VTuber impersonation in like forever. I gotta get back to doing that, but it's like I'm waiting for a time where just a bunch of this retard shit isn't going on at once. That way, when a VTuber I tag sees that, oh, I'm doing an impersonation of them, they're not gonna just like, oh, fuck you, you monarchist scum, I hope you die. What? You want me to do a Mari _EN impersonation? Fuck you. Yeah, I said it. Fuck you. Socrates. More like, suck on these. I'm glad you're dead. That's one of my favorite clips from The Fish Girl. Honorable Chatters. Dusty Rugburn is you're telling me no hymen, no diamond? I can't believe you're telling me that right now. I was gonna do a Kirsha impersonation, but I'm just waiting for all this to pass. That way Kirsha won't be none the wiser to take a look at my profile. Yeah, Scurvy. It is I can't really do a good Arnold, tell you the truth. But anyways, we're getting off topic here.
Libertarianism, left or right, but they refuse to exercise any authority of their own. And here, Andrew Wilson's concept of force doctrine becomes crucial.
Men are the enforcement arm of society. Yes, because they are the enforcers of rights, and I don't believe that rights exist as an objective standard, but rather they're a social construction of the mind. What I think we actually have is what's called force, right? So force are rights. That's all rights really can be, because the entailment of a right is it's only as good as who can enforce it.
Exactly, Mr. Wilson. Exactly. This is why I have the stance that it matters who enforces a law. And the way that our governments are set up, let's be real, they're ran by a bunch of Jewish Satan-worshipping pedophiles. They are not fit to be carrying out a porn ban. They just aren't. It's always a faux interest in saving the kids, even though they associate with with people who are involved in the most prolific child sex trafficking ring in all of known history.
Force doctrine are
So no, they don't care about kids. That's something I never argue. That's something I never argued for. That this law cares about kids. Only if you look at it on the surface, the UK law. But then when you actually dive deep into it, it's like, oh yeah, no, they don't give a shit about the kids. They really don't.
Argues a very simple concept, that whoever is willing to use force ends up shaping society. Moral reasoning, dialogue, and appeals to individual liberty are not enough. Instead, societies are ultimately ordered by those who are willing to enforce their values. And what this doctrine...
Exactly, and libertarians don't like that word force. They really don't. Even though they want to use force to get their ends. You know, they're big believers in the Second Amendment. So am I. But I don't think they understand what force actually entails. I don't think they do. It's not pretty to learn at first, but once you learn, it's like, then you start to realize that it's necessary. And if you look all throughout human history, force is very important. It's the reason why we're not all speaking Arabic.
Doctrine exposes is the limits of liberalism. Liberalism which assumes that a neutral space of reason and free speech is enough to sustain the current moral order.
And again, I'm not a free speech absolutist. And that got quite a few people to unfollow me because I said I am not a free speech absolutist. I'm not exactly a fan of free speech these days. Tell you the truth. There are some, I do not want my enemies to be able to speak. I don't think they should. I think they're too stupid, therefore they shouldn't speak. And they also try to destroy society when they do. So yes, I am not exactly a fan of free speech.
But liberalism depends on an unspoken force of its own. Laws, norms, and punishments are used to guard its ideals, even as it denies that it uses force at all. Wilson's idea cuts through this illusion by showing that every moral vision, including liberalism, is enforced by some form of coercion. And so in such a light, we can see why libertarians and classic liberals alike often lose ground. It is not simply a matter of being wrong, but rather they refuse to assert their own authority. Their moral obligations remain toothless if they are unwilling to enforce them. Meanwhile,
that's one thing I do like about the libertarians and liberals alike. They are toothless people. They are too scared to actually do anything. I'm not Fed posting or anything. Scurvy's a pacifist. You all know this. But I am saying that it is very feminine in that regard. It's like, oh no, we can just talk things out. Yeah, that's totally gonna work when the opposition wants to castrate our children and commit genocide upon the white race. Yeah, that's a very effective strategy at dealing with our enemies. Yeah, they don't understand that the time for talk has long passed.
Those who do use power, whether through law, education, or the media, define the culture. And so force doctrine reveals that all culture is downstream from enforcement, not just from ideas. So once again, political power ultimately flows from the willingness to use force to enact change. But libertarians recoil at this idea, and you can see this as they continually project a fear of authoritarianism. So they want the protections of property, speech, and contract enforced, but they refuse to assert the authority necessary to uphold these protections, because to do so would contradict their own moral ideal of freedom without dominion. Now this paradox reveals the hollowness of libertarian.
Libertarians are also not a fan of that D word, dominion. Especially the women. The libertarian women really don't like that word. You expect me to submit to a man? No, we're equals. Yeah, libertarian women are always feminists. If a woman cannot understand her place in the relationship, yeah, she's a feminist. I'm just gonna say it. She's a feminist. And when I say her place, I'm not saying, her place is described in the Bible many a times, in the book of Proverbs, in the Apostle Paul's letter to the Ephesians. It's all over in the Bible. Yes, that's kind of what I was implying. Archaeostaphy was, yeah, you do need to put her in her place. And yeah, and by that, yeah, that you know what I mean. that's the alcohol talking.
In outrage against groups like Collective Shout. All their protests are therefore rendered toothless and solely performative.
Though I would very much oblige in putting my woman in her place. I could tell you a story about that if you want. And feel free to DM that to me.
And the reason I would label them as controlled opposition is because all this cavorting is designed to keep people believing that they are somehow resisting, when in reality, you've all been pacified. So you can critique tyranny all you want, but we all know you're never going to overturn it. Sure, you'll demand freedom, but you won't bear the cost of defending it. And as much as you desire revolution, we know that you're just going to reject the authority that even makes that possible. So ultimately, the modern man is in bondage. He is enslaved externally by a technological infrastructure and internally by disordered desires. He is catechized by the screen, pacified by artificial intimacy, and disciplined by...
Dude, I love how you use that word pacify to describe online pornography. Like earlier when I was like, I think I was ranting to myself in the car that it's like, oh wait, no, this is also something I posted to Twitter earlier today. In regards to something that Grums posted, you know, fuck that guy. I basically said, like, in regards to the whole Sydney Sweeney jeans commercial thing, it's like, oh, well, we just had a bunch of video game commercials with hot women. It's like, oh, everything would be better. And no, the fuck it wouldn't. No, it wouldn't. If you want things to actually get better, well, looks like 111 needs to become 112.
Invisible algorithms. All the while he mistakes his chains for freedom. But then, when
I got the perfect button to describe Grums.
Good job, buddy! You're retarded! Yes, you are!
You should kill yourself now!
I'm joking with that other button. You know, the low-tier God button hasn't really been getting much use.
Price of his servitude becomes visible. He cries injustice, not against sin, but against its interruption. And libertarianism will never free him. It has no gospel, it offers no kingdom. At its best, it protests, and at its worst, it panders. And what it presents as resistance is often little more than a performance, optimized for engagement and driven by the same metrics that govern the world it claims to oppose. The libertarian does not aim to overthrow idols, only to go viral critiquing them. It's content that seeks views, not virtue, and its rebellion ends in monetization. Grift is not resistance. It is surrender dressed up as dissent. It is the algorithmic mimicry of courage.
I could see why V blocked you, EGAD. I don't think he'd understand that. He's been doing this. He's been doing his grift for a long time, so.
Created for an audience, but devoid of any true sacrifice. It will never build, it will never restore, and it refuses the authority that would make real change possible because it rejects the Lord from whom all true authority flows. But Christ is not an algorithmic influencer. He is king, and his claim over creation is totalizing. And yes, indeed, it is totalitarian, a word you are often told to be afraid of, in addition to authoritarian. And that's because true believers in progressive ideology and their libertarian cohorts want things that way. They want you to be afraid of forcing commerce, technology, sexuality, speech, and government into a realm of proper Christian governance. One promotes the enforcement of progressive ideology, while the other promotes the unenforced myth of neutrality.
And either way, it just eventually ends up as what happens in a total libertarian society is always anarchy. Again, as soon as you try to enact some form of lawfare, or no, not lawfare, as soon as you try to enact some form of legal standard into that, it's like, you're gonna, like, they're gonna be spurging out. It's gonna be impossible to get anything done. But the same thing also applies to a truly tyrannical society. Like, I'd say we are living in a tyranny. It is a fucked up social order. Things are not getting done. People, you know, the population is stagnating. It's starting to shrink even. Things just are not getting done. And these libertarians want to keep this status quo, all because of some stupid fucking freedom, quote unquote. It's not actually freedom. True freedom is the pursuit of virtue, not the ability to goon.
And what we need right now is for the church to recover her prophetic role. We need a people who fear God more than the algorithm, and a people who will build institutions with a moral framework that supersedes the secular moralizing of modern.
Yep. And EGAD found a banana here.
Progressivism. Until that happens, digital feudalism will persist.
I'm basically going to use that button as like a, oh, this guy made a good point.
And the cultural terrain will grow ever more barren, and men and women alike will continue to be enslaved and distracted, clutching to a false rhetoric of freedom, all the while refusing the very obedience to God that would make freedom possible.
Yep, another fantastic video by What the EGAD, though definitely not the first in the night. We have a lot. We have 2 other videos of his to go over. So, we have his other. We have another video from EGAD in regards to who the real culprits in all this are, in all these the censorship stuff, right? It's not Collective Shout, it's the credit card companies. Okay, you sent that story, Archaeosophy, already. I guess we could share. We could read that story before we continue. With my last girlfriend, she absolutely had 0 good people in her life. Her family were all shit, including her twin sister, and her friends were shit. Eventually, I realized that the only way to maintain peace in our relationship is if all of them get out of her life, therefore our life. She didn't want to do that, obviously, but I told her that if she didn't comply, we're done. And keep in mind, when we started dating, I discovered that she had a severe drinking problem, and she had severe panic attacks almost daily, and she hardly ever ate. Despite my rule that she has to throw everybody in her life out, she still chose me. She cut off all her family and former friends. As I told her, her panic attack stopped, she started eating a healthy amount, and it didn't allow her to drink at all. Point is, she knew my authoritarianism in our relationship was for her benefit, and she followed my lead. Too bad she was a whore. If she wasn't a whore, Arch, who knows? Actually could have worked out for you. But yeah, let's start talking about the real culprits of what's been going on here. The payment processors. They basically they're running a monopoly. Chibi Reviews actually had a point there. You know, they are a monopoly. They function like one, and they're basically fucking over everything around them.
And so once more I find myself drawn into a never-expanding thicket of modern censorship and all the mechanisms that come with it. Now, I've had more than a few people, both here on YouTube and elsewhere, insist we can't give more power to the government. But often what y'all oppose isn't the government per se, it's the corrupt individuals who currently occupy positions of authority. The truth is, government as an institution is not inherently the problem. For if it were composed of moral, accountable people genuinely acting in the public interest, then government could serve its proper function. For it.
Do you know what kind of system of government could do that? It ain't democracy. It is monarchy. Where's the button? Yeah, there it is.
It is, after all, simply people. The deeper issue is twofold. A citizenry increasingly unwilling to govern itself, and the political process that...
And that's something else about libertarians as well. I hate to cut you off there, EGAD, but libertarians do not know how to govern themselves. They're just incapable. It is what it is. They don't want to be governed. That's it. They basically want to live in anarchy. And what did you know? That's ultimately what they're trying to get, and that's ultimately what they're trying to achieve. What they want for the world is basically anarchy.
Reliably empowers individuals who do not act in the interest of those they represent. Furthermore, as I have repeatedly said, censorship ought not be categorically opposed, nor should anyone flinch at the idea of the government exercising that power. The real question is not whether censorship should exist, but who wields it, and to what end.
Exactly. The lulberts, they're not gonna listen to that. That is something else too, EGAD. They're not going to listen to that. The reason why they're not going to listen to that is, like, already they hear authority, they're going to be all squeamish. Even the Christians that I've had these arguments with, they get squeamish when you mention anything about the government, but not say that. And I don't think they're capable of understanding the caveat that a government that could properly enforce something like this is a Christian monarchy, because in a Christian monarchy, the people who run it a requirement is that they are good and moral people. What happens when a monarchy isn't full? When a monarchy is full of people who are immoral, it tends to collapse. A revolt will happen, and a new leader will take place. That is a good and religious person.
Every society censors. The only variable is what gets censored and by whom. One should be far less concerned with the presence of censorship than with the worldview of those enforcing it. What we need is leaders who are committed to truth, to decency, and the common good, and then entrusting them with that responsibility. Now, the real issue here is that the censorship of today does not always arrive in the form of state bans or explicit deplatformings. No, increasingly it manifests through the coercive power of financial intermediaries, credit card networks, payment processors, and banks, all whom have quietly become the gatekeepers of public participation. This
I wonder who runs them.
infrastructure, monopolized by entities like Visa and MasterCard, is opaque, unaccountable, and shielded from public recourse by a regulatory regime that protects its own dominance. These companies do not merely process payments, they act as de facto regulators, determining who may or may not participate in economic life and on what terms. Now,
Then they froze my bank account. Yeah, they actually did that with Kanye West. Say what you want about him, but these, the banks and the payment processors, yeah, they're way too powerful for their own good, and we've seen what happens when banks get too powerful and too centralized. Actually, we see what happens when banks get centralized in the first place. I'm surprised we haven't collapsed. As fast as Germany did when central banking was introduced. Rothschild central banking, because that's basically the family who invented it.
the Department of Justice has
Rothschilds.
already affirmed that Visa adds no material value to its payment system, yet it continues to extract fees and enforce control because there are no alternatives. And so in effect, Americans have been trapped in this closed-loop system that uses state-blessed market dominance to suppress competition and innovation. Meanwhile, meaningful alternatives like IBAN, used widely in Europe, remain unavailable to U.S. citizens. And this is not a result.
Yeah, that is an actual problem right there. There's no fucking alternative to Visa or MasterCard. Or hell, there used to be Discover, but Discover is no longer a thing. So, yeah, all you have is Visa and MasterCard.
Result of market failure, but of deliberate legislative and bureaucratic inertia. But the real center of gravity in the modern regime of control lies elsewhere. It sits not on the loud stages of political debate, but in the quiet infrastructure that makes digital life possible. Here in the background, the flow of money is being weaponized to constrain the flow of speech. And unlike all these symbolic culture wars that dominate social media feeds, this battle is rarely discussed in clear terms because it is enforced by private intermediaries with no obligation to explain themselves. Now, I began this entire reflection while observing the continued fallout from the recent Steam purge. A quiet but far-reaching act of digital censorship. In this case, it wasn't just about Valve delisting degenerate games. It was upstream pressure from payment processors, companies like MasterCard and Visa, cutting off financial services to developers, effectively blacklisting their work without explanation or recourse. And this isn't an isolated incident. We've seen the same pattern.
I'm just kind of letting this play out. I want EGAD to finish his point.
Unfold with Patreon, PayPal, Stripe, and the banks themselves, all of which have deplatformed various individuals and organizations not for breaking the law, but for ostensibly running afoul of ideological sensibilities.
Hey Gooners, if you're watching this, yeah, you're not the first to be raped by these companies, and you're not gonna be the last. What makes you so fucking special? Visa and MasterCard have hated the Christians for a very long time. If you cannot recall what happened during the Freedom Convoy, bank accounts are being frozen. The truckers couldn't use their cards to get food, It was a very, very strong effort done by these payment processors to stifle that protest by quite literally starving them. That's what happened. These payment processors hated us way before they hated you, and they're not trying to starve you out. Oh, unless you consider not being able to jack off to be starving. And if that's the case, then you're really retarded. Because these payment processors will keep going after Christians every time they actually make a stance that is based on their beliefs.
And the implications of this are far more serious than most are willing to admit. We now live in a system where financial access can be quietly revoked by unaccountable private intermediaries, people who act as de facto governors of moral speech. The infrastructure of the internet has grown so centralized that even the appearance of controversy is enough to render a person or a platform financially inert. And this is not merely about decency or offense, it's about how systems of control are coordinated in ways that make protest difficult and recourse nearly impossible. A great example of this is the kiwi farms. And to understand the depth of the problem, one should look at the career of someone like Josh Moon.
And absolutely, someone like Josh, the owner of the kiwi farms, has been fucked by these companies. 100%. I was around when Lucas or Keffels tried to take the website down. I've been a long-time lurker on the kiwi farms since at least 2015. So I've been a lurker for over a decade, basically. I think it's actually been 10 years to the day almost. It's a little past that. But I have seen I have been aware of the goings-on of that website for a long time. They have absolutely been fucked over by the payment processors. Really, the only way that they actually get funding is through people giving them Bitcoin or other cryptocurrency. That's how Knoll manages all the server costs. And Cloudflare, Cloudflare dropped the kiwi farms because Keffels and his goons tried to stifle them out. It didn't work. I mean, the farms were down for a while. It sucked that I couldn't use them for quite a bit of in 2020, or was it 2021? Either way, it failed. Every attempt that they try to shut down the kiwi farms, it fails. I don't think it's going to be happening anytime soon. Keep on trying, though. Keep on trying. It's going to work eventually, am I right? Am I right, lolberts? But yeah, EGAD is absolutely correct in bringing up someone like Josh Moon.
For many years now, he has been at the center of fierce controversy. Some of it, but far from all of it, justified. Yet in recent days, his arguments about the deeper structure of financial censorship have landed with clarity, and he has framed the issue superbly. Those blaming feminist NGOs for pressuring MasterCard were, in his words, fools, taking the bait. The real issue lies with the global financial architecture that is both unaccountable and legally deputized to act on the behalf of governments, especially the United States. Feminist NGOs are just convenient scapegoats, by design. But the real decision makers are the financial services that operate under the shadow of federal law.
Oh man, when it comes to that, I do have to ask, who is running these feminist groups? Like, it might sound just like another, Scurvy's being a noticer again, but no, I am absolutely serious about that. It's like, who are running these feminist groups? What kind of connections do they have with these credit card companies? Especially to the point that they are basically an arm of them.
Immune from civil liability and incentivized to err on the side of caution. at everyone else's expense. Josh's analysis deserves to be taken seriously, even by those who might dislike him or disagree with his rhetorical postures. These companies, these payment processors, they're not the courts. They don't wait for a ruling. They are risk managers, not public servants. And their due diligence obligations, along with their trade secrets, mean they can cut off service without giving reasons or providing a path to appeal. Now this...
And that's a fucking problem right there. You having no chance to appeal when your bank account gets frozen. There's no chance for you to tell them that you're gonna stop the behavior so you can have access to your fucking money. That should be illegal. Like, just in general, a bank should not be the only person who should be able to shut down a bank account is the person who opened the account. Well, I mean, I know there's other financial situations like that, but you get my point. It should be somebody in the family or the person who owns the account. That the bank should not be able to freeze it because you said something they didn't like. That should absolutely be illegal.
This entire arrangement didn't come out of nowhere, as much as the reactionaries on X and YouTube would like you to believe. It emerged after 9/11, when Title III of the Patriot Act was codified into federal law, expanding the scope of financial surveillance and enforcement. From there, the infrastructure grew. Sections 5311 to 5332 of the U.S. Code govern financial reporting and anti-money laundering efforts. Their statutes criminalize the distribution of obscene material, especially if it depicts violence or targets minors. And none of these laws are theoretical. They provide the legal basis for financial institutions to act preemptively, often in response to vague associations with potential legal risk. Now, I should also mention this does not mean that all deplatformed content deserves protection, because some of it is indeed reprehensible. What matters here is the structure. We do not operate within a framework where the law functions through courts and juries. Instead, the law has been offloaded onto private actors whose
and that's laziness on the government's behalf. The law, that's something they should be enforcing, not a bunch of private companies. Of course, private companies, do you know who the private company acts on, in terms of interest? Who are they acting on? Well, that's an easy answer right there. Themselves. That's all they care about is themselves. Not even the people working at the companies.
Decisions are final, opaque, and systemic. So what this means is none of this can be addressed through all these online petitions or moral appeals to platforms. As Josh has put it very bluntly, petitions and crying on the internet will not fix this. We need Congress to pass a bill. And he's right. The system as it exists is the product of federal law. It's not accidental overreach. And if the law treats financial institutions as the front line of national security, then those institutions will act accordingly. Now here's the thing. If people want that to change, then they must engage the actual sources of power. Legislation, oversight, policy. Don't just engage the symptoms. And this is where the public's pacificity becomes dangerous. Because it's not despair, but comfort that is the real problem here. Too many people are willing to accept a system that they only barely understand, so long as the consequences do not hit them directly. But when...
And man, when you need... And when you're looking at the terms of service or whatnot for these cards, you're not just going to need one lawyer to look at them like you would with Steam. And Steam's TOS policy is full of legal jargon. Yeah, you're probably going to need a team of lawyers right there. Shekel and Shekel, LLC.
Platforms as large as Steam are potentially violating age ID laws because they don't ask for identification to buy pornography. Well, you start to realize just how widespread the legal liabilities might be, and just how much enforcement is already happening quietly before a case ever reaches court. So we need to reorient ourselves to the actual shape of power. Power does not always arrive with a boot or a baton. Sometimes it arrives as a customer service form. Sometimes it doesn't arrive at all, and it just disappears you from the network.
That's something else a lot of libertarians don't understand. Is like they think authoritarianism on its own is it's as soon as they just start beating the shit out of their civilians or start killing civilians for a wrong thing, that's when it becomes authoritarian. And even then, authoritarianism is actually relatively neutral. But the way that these credit card companies basically have a hold over, the law, it's a shitty version of authoritarianism. These are not proper, governing agents that we should be submitting to. They just aren't.
The response to all this must begin with clarity. If there's no neutral infrastructure, no domain registrars that serve all lawful speech, no payment networks that serve all lawful commerce, then every inch of digital terrain becomes contingent on ideology, discretion, or PR pressure. And as we know, that is not rule of law, that is rule by protocol, and it will be enforced through silence. Now here's the more difficult part. This all begins with a clear-eyed explanation of how these systems operate, and a willingness to defend the truth wherever it is spoken, even when it comes from controversial figures we might not fully endorse. Someone like Josh Moon doesn't fit neatly into anyone's narrative, but given the whole history of the Kiwi Farms and Josh's role in its outstanding presence on the internet, his role in this conversation is an important one, and it ought to be taken seriously. And
that it should, but I'll be right back. I'm just gonna head to the little Clementine's room, and then I'm gonna grab me another drink. Okay, I'm back. Sorry, I just had to. I almost forgot to feed my snails. Snail time button. Uh-oh, snail time. Sorry, I had to take care of my pets. But I'm back. My snails are fed. Anyways, we're gonna get back to EGAD's video. I also grabbed me 2 cans of 2 cans. I grabbed 2 cans of the gin seltzer I was drinking earlier. Alrighty, let's continue.
With due consideration. People are upset over Steam censoring games at the behest of the payment networks. People are more upset over a feminist group in Australia taking credit, but this presents a good opportunity to raise awareness of the core problem. MasterCard, Visa, American Express, Discover, their payment processors, and the financial services industry. There is a bill titled Fair Access to Banking Act, which is a nice first step, but not a real solution. Now, I've written at length about payment networks. Many of you are familiar with how the Kiwi Farms is unmonetizable, and my mere association with it has not only led to payment processors demonetizing my other companies, but after forming the United States Internet Preservation Society, 501c4 nonprofit, for the express purpose of petitioning the government to change laws on payment networks, I was indeed denied a payment processor for that because of the principal's background. I'm so thoroughly banned from PayPal, I cannot book an Uber with any credit card number it recognizes as mine. This bill is insufficient to meaningfully help people like me. It is better.
Honestly, when I was listening to this, I thought that like this is EGAD talking, but it's like seeing it now. It's Josh who's doing the talking. Like man, if you want to see just how brutal like financial companies can be towards any individual, I would say Null is the perfect example of that. All because he runs an internet gossip website that's basically it. Yes, I know what that website does. As to not be vague myself, like I was making fun of Chibi Reviews for being earlier. Yes, it has publicly available information, which I mean, hey. It can technically be considered doxing, but yeah, we're not going to get into that here.
Better than nothing, but it has no teeth. First, the bill extensively writes about banks, but the bank in debanking is often not a...
But yeah, even in the rules, even if you leak someone's docs, no trolling plans. You cannot do that on the farms. You cannot organize a trolling plan to basically just send pizzas to people's houses.
Literal brick and mortar bank. If it was, there would not be as many issues. Over 9,000 financial institutions, banks, and credit unions operate in the USA. If a bank didn't want to do business with you, that's actually not a huge deal. You could find another bank. Payment processors and payment networks are the bigger issue. When you want to get paid online in the USA, you have to do business with these financial services. The complexity of this mechanism is deliberately designed to obfuscate who is doing what and making which decisions. You and your bank receiving money. The payment processor that negotiates you as a customer. There's sometimes a separate company called a payment gateway that provides an interface between your application and the payment processor. But most modern payment processors roll their own payment gateway. The underwriting banks that maintain a relationship between the payment processors and payment net.
I get Null, because I know my book would get banned anywhere else. It's why Johnny Midnight showed me the Arius Press, because they don't like the woke stuff. I see.
These underwriting banks.
You keep mentioning the Arius Press. I gotta look into them sometime. If I want them, maybe if I want a publisher for my book, I could probably get published through them. People are freaking out about gaming. There's cases of people being debanked for even protesting their governments. Yes, Dusty. I mentioned the Freedom Convoy earlier. That's absolutely the case. Even people in the U.S., this happens to them too. A lot of like a lot of the hardcore noticers, yeah, I don't think they exactly have bank accounts with any of the big banks.
Banks maintain the direct relationship with the card networks
And if they did, their
and have
money
a
is probably
veto
all
on
frozen.
if you get to be a customer of the payment processor. Some payment networks work with multiple underwriting banks. For instance, Citi is a large underwriting bank that is friendly with guns, so NFA merchants will often be paired with Citi for selling guns. And the card networks. These are MasterCard, Visa, Discover, and American Express. When you sign up to process cards, you agree to the terms of service, collectively and individually, for every single one of these companies. You are agreeing to some of the most complex rules to ever be written, not for a single service, but for the payment processor, payment gateway, underwriting bank, and each of the 4 card networks. If you break in,
if we were to dive into any of these terms of service for getting like the full terms of service for getting a Visa card or a MasterCard, oh my goodness, we'd probably be here all night. At the very least, I'd probably be up till like 6 in the morning just going over the whole thing, which I value my sleep, so we're not gonna do that. The RES Press is a publisher based in Ireland, and they publish some heavy stuff relating to esoteric stuff and hardcore ideologies. I see. I wonder if they publish fiction, like, you know, VTuber lore. Probably would. Then again, the main villain in the story is representative of the oy vey.
These rules at any time, you may find yourself immediately unable to make money. And if that happens, you probably won't be told why. Risk management is a trade secret. You have no right to know, and you cannot sue to know. Now, it could have been the payment processor directly, receiving complaints from people who want to deplatform you. It could be the underwriting bank who...
So, while I'm largely letting this video play, I should let you guys know. This goes so much deeper than one could possibly imagine. It really does. And that's by design. That's by its design. When it comes to anything dealing with money, that's naturally going to be the case. That's mainly because people's livelihoods are at stake, and it being complicated. On one hand, that's a good thing, but on another hand, banks and card processors tend to forget that, you know, it is regular people who are using their services. They should at least have an understanding as to what they're signing up for. Hey Scurvy, what do you think of the post on Zitter I just made? I think it's relevant. It has to do with people, with living as people want to without bureaucratic oppression. Feel free to DM it to me, because I'm still in the middle of this. We could get to it after the EGAD video. The YouTube description, which says pagan space imperialism, perfectly fits this. I see.
For whatever reasons, was unhappy with your transactional volume. If you sell too much or sell too little, then you do an annual sale that suddenly spikes your sales from $0 to a lot. That could be a fraud indicator. It could be a card network that decided you are a reputational risk to their brand. You will never know who, what, when, where, or why, and you will not be given a chance to appeal. And you will not be given information, so even if you try to apply for another card, you won't know what to do right the next time. The proposed law does not address any of this. Instead, what it does is it gives you the option to complain to the Office of the Comptroller of Currency. If the OC...
And how far can that go, really? And hey, that's nice and all, but again, how far can that go? When the government doesn't care about monitoring these payment processors like they should be doing, and I wouldn't be surprised if the payment processors are like the, you know, everybody jokes about, like, oh, you know, this is the fourth branch of the government. I would argue that the payment processors are the fourth branch of the American government. Again, it's all dealing in money. That's the easiest point of argumentation, like, I would say, in regards to that. And they are basically, and money is power. And we are basically complying with that. And these credit card companies have a global reach as well. Do not forget that. They have a global reach. And they are using these feminist groups all over the world to achieve their ends. And of course, we all know what those ends are, especially if you're a hardcore noticer like myself.
SEC feels bad for you, they may fine the institution up to $10,000. But here's the problem. Last year, the Supreme Court of the United States ruled that administrative law judges do not meet the jury requirement of the Constitution. Thus, they cannot impose fines. So, empowering the OCC to fine one of the largest and most powerful companies in human history $10,000 is already a joke. But they actually have no
$10,000. That's like, so $10,000 to Visa or MasterCard. That's barely a blip on like anything. So yeah, if Visa or MasterCard were to do something illegal to one person, a $10,000 fine, we could just pay that off. Or better yet, they try to find an excuse as to, they don't have to pay it off because they didn't actually do anything wrong. These payment processors have some of the best lawyers on the fucking planet because they have to. And if they don't, well, they're doomed. Simple as.
Means to enforce it. And even if the fine was enforceable, it's up to the discretion of the OCC to enforce it. And if the OCC doesn't find it politically expedient to help you, they won't. For example, when the Kiwi Farms was being deplatformed by ISPs, we moved infrastructure to Washington State because they had net neutrality as a state law. But here's another problem. It was not a civil cause of action, but rather something the Attorney General of Washington had to impose on the company. The Attorney General was Bob Ferguson, who decided he would not help us. Despite our condition 100% meeting the criteria for a net neutrality violation. For law to have value, it needs to do the following. First, it must create a federal civil relief with statutory damages for lost opportunity, ideally with riders for punitive damages, and also attorneys' costs and fees. As this is a purely financial matter, it must make financial sense to sue one of the largest and most powerful companies in the world. Second, it must undo existing requirements already imposed by the federal government on financial services. Title III of the Patriot Act deputized, in the words of Ron Paul, the financial services to act as a form of law enforcement, one which cannot be appealed.
Like I said earlier, fourth branch of the United States government. And out of all the branches, this one enforces the most out of all of them. It is the payment processors that carry out the will of, well, them. That's how a lot of people feel. And I want them to stop too. But unfortunately, I can't do anything about it. That's kind of the black pill in all this. We as individuals can't really do anything about this. And even with this Fair Access to Banking Act, what? It's only going to put a dent in Visa and MasterCard's profits if they're discovered to be doing illegal shit, which they could probably easily write off it with some bizarre technicalities.
It's no due process. By the time the Patriot Act was not
there's a reason why Jews are damn good lawyers. Because that's all they do is argue about God's law. That's all they do.
Nude, the vestigial remains of these Title III requirements had been reshuffled into other parts of the USC. I'd also like to take a second to reiterate just how abysmal the payment networks are as a fundamental concept. I have lived outside the US for almost a decade. In Europe, they have the IBAN system. There, your debit card will not have the mark of the beast on it. It is free to pay people with your debit card. It is free and instant to send money. In the US, these card networks charge around 2.9% plus 30 cents for every single card transaction. Now, stores are forbidden by the card terms of service for adding these fees to the purchase price, like they do sales taxes in the US. If you buy $100 of groceries at Walmart, Walmart actually loses $3.20 to the card networks. Walmart, despite making $648 billion in gross sales in 2024, is powerless against the card networks. On that figure alone, with the most
Oy vey, Walmart. Well, you gotta give a little bit, of the off the top to us. Oy vey. Well, oy vey, my fellow Jews. Yeah, sure. I want, yeah, that's a good idea. I don't know what I'm getting at with this, but basically, the fact that these credit card companies, literally, the only way that these people make money is via usury. That should fucking tell you something. It's only via usury. I'm starting to get why some businesses actually didn't want to change to credit for the longest time.
Conservative estimate, Walmart had to eat shit on almost $19 billion in fees, not including individual transaction fees, which is billions more, as those fees are taken out of gross sales and not net profit. That's Walmart. Imagine how badly this is impacting
hi Postnut, how are ya?
small businesses. Suppose you have a shop that sells $100 of goods on a 15% margin. Your margin goes down to 11.8% right off the bat just because you have to pay a random company to make money in the US.
And I'm surprised. Libertarians are not talking about this. Whenever they bring up these payment processors, all they're doing is they're just spurring about how they don't have access to porn. That's it. They are not talking about any of this that is in Null's post. They are not talking about any of this, which is actual violations to civil liberties. It basically, libertarians, they don't like the government, but they also don't like powerful corporations, right? This is an example of how you should not be liking these uber powerful corporations. I, as a monarchist, am not a fan of Visa or MasterCard at all. However, that's not what these lulberts are talking to them about. They're not talking about this. No, that would actually be that would actually require intellect. Nope, what they're talking about is my ability to jack off is being impeded on. I can't buy CSAM games on Steam anymore. I can't buy No Mercy on Steam anymore. That's my problem. I could see why the Indians who are running those call centers for the card companies are getting tired of this. And now, thank you, lulberts, for preventing actual change from, happening.
We are getting fucked. We are getting raped. The companies are raping you. They are raping the country. They are pilfering businesses of all sizes for billions of dollars a year. And then they use that power to break the back of alt tech, blackball individuals from the global economy, and fund DEI initiatives, mass immigration initiatives, and child genital mutilation surgeries. Yes, indeed. When you swipe a Visa or MasterCard, you are paying for little boys to get castrated in the US.
And that's a fucking shame. Like, Visa and MasterCard should not be able to fund that shit at all. And imagine, if people found out what these card companies were actually doing, like Josh Moon of the Kiwi Farms did, well, I think people would naturally be in uproar, but no, they don't want to listen to that. Oh, that's null from the Kiwi Farms. Oh, you have a bad reputation. That's why libertarians are just a bunch of bitches.
So when I see people bickering about stupid shit that doesn't matter, it makes me sick to my stomach. The backs of these companies needs to be broken. They won't go down without a fight, and they will pay for shills to defend them, for organizations to take the blame for their actions. Bribe politicians out the ass. The Department of Justice is currently suing Visa for being a monopoly. Specifically, Visa has near total monopoly on debit cards. They impose anti-competitive practices on banks to somehow force them to issue Visa cards and persuade their customers to use their Visa cards. To quote the Department of Justice,
the fact that the DOJ is going after Visa, that should be telling of something. It really should be. Unfortunately, again, the centrist libertarians are not going to be listening to this. They just aren't, because their main proclivity is not about actual, civil liberties being maintained. I mean, the ACLU has been compromised for who knows how long. I think maybe since its founding even. I don't know about its... there might be some alternatives that, who knows, maybe they might be compromised in one way or another. But no, all the Lowberts care about is being able to whack off. They just want to continue to be pacified under this tyrannical, anarchical bullshit.
Visa sets fees not based on its costs or competition, but rather relative to the value we provide, i.e. Visa's perception of its own value. The formal opinion of the fucking federal government is that Visa has no value-added service but continues to add fees because you can't do anything about it. That's why they will do whatever it takes to stay in power. They have the easiest, most comfortable...
I have a theory. Considering we listened to basically this full thing. Excellent video, EGAD. I have this hunch. By the time society collapses, I could see either one of two ways. Basically, the credit card companies would be our government because they'd probably try to offer some cash incentives. Or they'd totally collapse because people are more focused on survival. And they don't really care about money. They care more about food than they do paper. Either way, collapse will at least make them react to something. If society does collapse, I pray that the latter happens, that these credit card companies go out of business.
Highest profit ratio business model of almost any company to ever exist. And right now, they have a monopoly charter granted to them by the federal government. They will happily spend billions to stay in power because billions is how they measure numbers in their business.
Wow, that was harrowing, to say the least. What do you guys think about that? We're going to take a short little intermission to talk about Archaeosophy's latest post, because he made a pretty good post, just from reading the description of it a little bit. I'll also take a look at my notifications, because why not? I'd like to have a clean thing of notifications. Okay, there's just nothing I had to respond to. Alrighty, we could get to Archaeosophy's post here. So, he wrote, the people never rise up on their own. History is elites versus elites. However, I could easily see a revenge uprising taking place, basically where the people simply choose to start living off the land as they wish. The government says you can't do it that way, and those people say try to stop me. No effort to seize anything or conquer anything, just surviving as they see fit, and the government decides if it's going to kill those people over it. Honestly, that's also pretty harrowing stuff, too. That's something else the credit card companies ain't gonna like. Mainly for the fact that, you're not using us to facilitate your business? You're living off the land? What? I can't believe this. Oy vey! Watch as our little phylacteries with the Torah in it says that oy vey, you have to do that for us. Jew jokes aside, let's get back to EGAD's series on the payment processors. And this time, this is going to have a lot more biblical references in it, because he is very good about incorporating the Bible into into his videos, his faith into his videos too.
Last few videos talking about payment processors and about censorship. What needs to be made clear is that the hand of Mammon has grown long and subtle. That which once served the household now governs the house. Commerce, which was once the humble servant of the common good, now postures as arbiter of the moral order.
Yeah, and like what we went over in his last video, these companies should not be able to have any say in terms of creating the moral fabric of this country. They should not be able to advance a bunch of globalist causes. They should not be able. They should ultimately be They should ultimately be serving the citizens of the country. Let's see. Sorry for the long type out, but I don't think you're up the Arius Press's alley, and it's because they want to revive heavy metal storytelling like Conan, and I kind of do something similar to that. Oh, Rexus, my boy. I too am listening to metal music when I write my book. Don't think that heavy metal isn't an inspiration for my lore. Don't think that it's not.
Commerce now decides whom it shall feed and whom it shall starve, not on the basis of law, nor in submission to conscience or the public will, but in obedience to publicity campaigns, to ideological trends, and to the murmurs of unseen councils. Visa, MasterCard, PayPal, and the like, without legislative charter, now hold the power to silence speech, suppress livelihoods, and decide what may or may not be said and sold in the public square. This is abominable. It is homosexual. It is not the nature of these entities to act from moral principle. Their God is liability, their creed is optics, and their gospel is the maintenance of shareholder trust. Yet these powers do not act alone. The whip hand of economic exclusion is often directed by those who cry for moral clarity, those who, finding the legislative process slow and the cultural tide uncooperative, reach instead for the nearest lever that might still produce an effect. Sometimes these are prophets of progress, but not always.
Oh, EGAD is already laying it out right here. That's the thing about these payment processors. Ultimately, they are just more servants of the tribe, because then again, the people who run them are of the tribe. So naturally, our interest is not their interest. And gee, I wonder what other similarities you could draw from. Wait a second, VTubers and wholesome? Oh, well, yeah. lot of VTubers are actually whores, but there's a minority that aren't. For me, I am very much inspired by, like, many things when I'm writing this story. You know, power scaling, metal music, that kind of stuff. Mainly.
Recently, I watched The Secret War to Censor the Internet by the YouTuber Lextorius. Shout out to the YouTuber Kudere Kun for pointing this out to me.
Hold on, let's actually read that comment.
Shout out.
I suggest you watch Lextorius' new video on the topic. It's not feminist groups pressuring these companies, but conservative evangelical Christian groups, some of which use calculated language that make it possible for them to mistake them for feminists, but they are not. Your mistake in this video and why you underestimate the significance of these nonprofit groups is that you think the payment processors have no legal liability, but they do. Part of what is motivating them is a fear that they could be sued over something. It's about protection they used to have but lost. And EGAD replied with, "No, I mentioned the legal liabilities very clearly. My main issue is that the decisions being made are not under rule of law. In other words, unelected people are not supposed to be making these decisions, even if they pretend to be moral decisions. I don't believe anyone, including nonprofit Christian groups, ought to be able to use forced decisions through non-elected corporations because the greater damage is that they directly undermine the legal system we already have in place." And yes, I am saying this as a Christian. That's also true, too. As Christians, we are undermining a government, undermining hold on, how, I'm trying to put this in a decent way. Again, I'm not a theologian. So in terms of the U.S. government, I mean, it is a corrupt government, right? But us Christians, we are not meant to be undermining governments. That's not how we roll. That's how the Jews do things. We do not do things like that. And for those evangelical Christian groups, yeah, you might want to stop with that. And I'd recommend repentance. But then again, evangelicals tend to, they support a lot of things that are very unchristian. Mainly Israel.
To the YouTuber Kudere Kun for pointing this out to me. Lextorius made it clear that among the NGOs pushing for online censorship, Christian organizations, earnest in their zeal, firm in their doctrine, and upright in their moral clarity, have also employed these levers themselves.
Trafficking Hub was at the forefront of the movement to shut Pornhub down and is referenced alongside Micklethwait in Christoph's article, which also sneaks in the line, "We're already seeing that limiting Section 230 immunity leads to better self-policing," all before Christoph's call for credit card companies to cut ties, something that Exodus Cry and Morality in Media had been doing for years, having just written an open letter directed at Pornhub's payment processors a few months earlier.
Thing is, I mean, hey, that's all well and good, but I don't think those payment processors are going to be listening. They know that porn is easily one of their biggest money makers. Again, these credit card companies are of the tribe. Same with the porn companies and the porn industry. Many the people who own these companies, they love saying oy vey. Both the credit card companies and the porn companies, they very much are fans. They very much love to say that.
So after all this is where Serena Fleitas decided to sue MindGeek, Pornhub's parent company, for not taking proper measures to remove a video of her being abused while underage. As most lawsuits do, it throws the entire book at them, including charges of facilitating sex trafficking, which allowed them to bypass Section 230 protections. And it wrangled in every company affiliated with MindGeek.
Yet evangelicals think they're Christian. Remember, if a pagan, Catholic, and Protestant agree with the fact that one evangelical they know of isn't really Christian, that should really tell you something. That's also 100% correct, Rexus. The ones I like have to basically accept they do lewd crap, and happy they are prudent to heavily separate that from their YouTube channel.
Geek in a massive RICO case, including Visa. Importantly, when Visa sent a motion to dismiss their involvement in the case, the judge denied it, citing the fact that Visa had previously cut and then restored ties with MindGeek since Christoph's article as primary evidence that they had conducted some internal investigation and must have been aware of any illegal activity, thus making them complicit. The allegations against MindGeek are obviously very serious. As Mickleweight posted on her Twitter, there are currently 27 lawsuits being made against them, most of them unresolved as far as I'm aware. Though the reason that I bring it up in this video
reason why that they're unresolved is because the porn companies also have damn good lawyers at their backs as well, just like the payment processors.
Is because this lawsuit is the single thing that has led to every other website I've talked about either shutting down or changing policy since 2020. It is the nexus point that you can trace all of the other payment processor related problems back to. Companies like Visa and MasterCard and PayPal have long been a prime target for advocacy groups to put pressure on. Of course they would be. Their dominance in the financial market means they have complete control over which companies live and die based solely on who they want to do business with. And they have no real obligation to do business with anyone or justify why they won't.
One supposes.
And I'm starting to think that maybe they should, for clarity reasons. At least give a reason as to why you're not doing service with a company or institution anymore. That's the least that these payment processors could be doing. But no, they're not doing that. Wonder why that's the case.
Their intentions are noble, their targets are vile, and their ends, to a point, may be praised. But their means, unfortunately, lie outside the bounds God has ordained for them. And this is why I, even as a Christian myself, would not abide by this behavior. For the Christian must never forget that the moral law which binds all men does not give license to usurp the instruments of another sphere.
You remember, at that time, we took a look at Maslow, and we took a look at Rogers in their statement about who man is. Basically, good and perfectible. That brought us to this issue, why is there evil in the world? Rogers says, experience leads me to believe that it is cultural influences which are the major factor in our evil behaviors. Maslow then said, sick people are made by a sick culture. Healthy people are made possible by a healthy culture. What did that lead us to in terms of a humanistic view of man? Basically good and perfectible. Mental health can be attained by getting in touch with yourself, self-actualization. But it was the social institutions that were the problem. Social institutions are responsible for man's evil actions.
And of course, you know, Scurvy, being a Christian, disagrees with this. Again, humanism is kind of an extension of like blank slate, like theology. It's like an extension of blank slate ideology and theology. Like blank slateism in itself can be a religion that people idolize. And, you know, that evolved into humanism.
And that is why we have the kind of social actions that we have today. Because as soon as the state begins to believe that it has the right and the obligation, if these are the problems, we will invest power in this institution to help gain control of those institutions which are causing the evil in society. And the state then begins to rise in power and begin to think that it does have the right to breach the sovereign boundaries of each of those spheres. Sphere sovereignty.
That's just another consequence of democracy. This is always a consequence of democracy, is that the state basically will become a nanny state. Again, democracy is very feminine in its structure. And a nanny state is also very feminine in its structure. It's not a fallacy to say that one will lead to the other, that A will lead to B. The to lead part, that could be, 10 years, or it could be 100 years, or even longer. But still, A leads to B.
Is gone, and we have the rise of the state. And when the state begins to rise in power, it no longer observes any kind of sphere sovereignty at all, but begins to assume that it has the right to absorb all of those institutions underneath its control and power. And that then brings us to a great conflict. What is the conflict? What is the problem? It ends up being an ethical problem.
The biblical point is...
Yep, because, again, nanny states will always lead to this. Where the state has way too much power and it becomes a tyranny.
Not that our problem ultimately is an intellectual one. It's a moral one. That's why we appeal for relativism. Because if there is no objective truth, if there are no objective standards, then it's okay for me to live however I want to live.
Okay, I'll be back, then I'll address that point. Because it's a damn good point, I'll tell you that much. And also try to get some more viewers in here too. Honestly, I think I'm probably gonna end the stream after this, but I want to get some more people in here before before I end it. So I'm just gonna send another link out to people. Hey y'all, after I'm done reacting to this video to this video, I'm gonna do a short chat and then head off and then end the stream. So if you wanna stop by and chat, feel free to do. Oh wait, no. That's a Kairos post. Oh man. Okay, so that's good. Sorry, I'm just taking care of this before I continue. Alrighty. Let's continue, shall we? The means used to pursue charges against MindGeek is because MindGeek is protected by the government for some reason. Yeah, that's also the case. For some reason, our government wants to protect porn companies.
According to my preferences. But if there is a God, and he's normative, and he has a law, then he says no when I want to say yes, and I have a conflict. If I could just get rid of objective truth, get rid of objective reality.
And God is the one who brings about that objective truth and objective reality.
Then I can live however I want to live.
And the thing is, when you discard God, right? And I was an atheist for a very long time. I would say, almost like a decade of my life, I was an atheist. And even so, it's like I knew that there was a thing as objective morality, but it's like I was kind of denying myself that it had a source. Like, oh, we as humans just kind of know what's good and what's bad. But but knowing what I know now, it's like that doesn't really make much sense when you really think about it. Humans in that environment of natural freedom, we're not all that moral. We are very self-interested in our own survival first as natural organisms, so to speak. And morality, and when it comes to morality, there is clearly a higher, something higher than our fallen nature that tells us that this is good and this is bad. It's not instinctual. It's something higher. I see, Rexus, I see.
If I can just get rid of objective truth, then I can live however I want to live. What is the conflict?
That's also how libertarians believe many things as well, which is why I say to the more, Christian libertarians, it's like, you're kind of serving two masters here. So who is your God? Is it freedom, quote unquote, or is it God?
Here, what is the problem? What do we need to get rid of? God. He becomes the problem. When the state begins to rise in power, his restrictions, his ethical notions now become the problem. Mm-hmm. And we need to remove him. Now, you can't remove him, but the state will begin to act as if he is no longer there. And when the state...
And keep in mind, this is how our government functions right now. They're Christian in name only. They don't actually believe that God is the one who is the moral arbiter of truth. They don't believe that. They act within their own interests. They pretend that they are God. Even though a president is supposed to swear upon a Bible whenever they get sworn into office. But apparently, now that our government is full of, people who aren't Christian, or, they're Christian in name only. They only do that to virtue signal to a bunch of evangelical retards. If an Orthodox Christian were to ever be in office, we'd actually take those oaths very seriously.
He begins to act as if he is no longer there. Then we begin to view the state in a little different way. Look at Hegel's comment about the state. The universal is to be found in the state. The state is the divine idea that exists on earth. We must therefore worship the state as the manifestation of the divine on earth, and consider that if it is difficult to comprehend...
Of course it's fucking Hegel. Hegel is quite the retard. One of, if I could recall, I know he's like a big-time Marxist. He also has his own kind of bastardization of Marxism called Hegelianism. George Wilhelm Friedrich Hegel, German literary historian. Yep, this fucker. I despise him. I truly despise him. But that could be its own fucking stream on just how evil Hegel is. And in all his retarded glory, thinks that the state is God. No. No. The state is an idol. That's what it is. If you weren't, like, that's what happens. Like, there's a reason why so many atheists worship the state when they stop believing in God. They absolutely will just start worshiping the state. And I've been in arguments with many of those people, especially after one of my friends was smeared on by the Irium staff, and I was shit talking the Irium staff. Not like I'm gonna be on that platform anytime soon. If they're gonna have a problem with my beliefs, yeah, sorry, you're just a statist atheist who doesn't understand how the world works, and you're too stupid to understand how the world works. Sorry, you were born that way. It's called genetics. And you were born with low IQ.
Nature.
Yeah, Hegel was before Marx. Yeah, but I don't know why. It's the alcohol, Dusty. It's the alcohol. And also, you know. But yeah, I do thank you for the reminder. I almost forgot. No, I did forget.
It is harder to grasp the essence of the state. The state is the march of God through the world. Now, I would submit to you that that is exactly what is going on. Now, we don't bow down to some statue, but we begin to act as if it is God.
Hegel was the one who Marx copied and was part of the movement called the Young Hegelians. Yep.
And we change the sphere of God and man now to state and man. That the state becomes...
Again, this all goes back to being, our country being a nanny state. It's because we decided to forsake God and his moral edicts because we thought that we're better than him. It's like, yeah, God only gave us the framework for all this stuff, all the great stuff that we have now, but we could just leave him behind. We don't need him anymore. Yeah, we're the state. We're so powerful. We don't need God to dictate morality. We could just do it on our own. And for the Christians who are still want to practice their religion, yeah, they can, but under our jurisdiction, and can't say anything too edgy, stuff like that, right? I know. I'm also really particular about this stuff because you got to know who to blame. Yeah, I'm with you. I'm with you, Dusty.
That which we turn to answer all of our problems. The state begins to assume that it has the right over all education. Begins to assume it has the responsibility for the poor. The state begins to assume that all ethics now are bound up in the state's declaration of what is right and wrong.
Yep.
It assumes it will take care of the needy. Of course, using your
let's let him finish his
goods
point.
to do it. It will determine what wages can be paid, and it will determine what marriage looks like, and on it goes.
Let's go back a few seconds to that graph. Doesn't this look exactly like how our society is now? The state takes care of fucking everything. It thinks it has a responsibility to pull the poor out of poverty. Welfare. Poor and needy. And we're expected to basically, give our tax dollars over so a bunch of poor, stupid people can abuse that. Which they are. They have been for a long time. As for marriage, well, I've made several streams about how feminism destroyed marriage and the state is a feminist state. And so naturally, they want to keep the destruction of marriage going for as long as possible. As for education, no longer is that the responsibility of smaller schools, but it's a whole state curriculum. Yay! We love being taught useless shit that we don't need. Yay! As for ethics, Well, the state knows all, right, guys? Am I right? No, clearly they do not. The state knows nothing about morality. They never will. That was always a matter, that was always something that religion taught to people, never the state. Because the state morality, as it is now, is definitely not Christianity. It's leftism. It's DEI bullshit.
Determine what marriage looks like, and on it goes. The state rising up and assuming authority and power destroys these institutions.
This is the doctrine of sphere sovereignty, something not conceived of by man, but revealed in the very structure of creation, and upheld by the Lord Christ, in whom all things cohere. And for anyone unaware of what sphere sovereignty is, let me break this down for you. Sphere sovereignty is a concept that was systematized and popularized by theologian Abraham Kuyper. The way it works is that society is composed of distinct spheres or realms, each with its own authority and responsibility. Now, these spheres operate independently.
Everything within the state, nothing outside the state, and nothing against the state. Mussolini. Yep. So, I know I made some allusions to this before on my X account, in regards to fascism. It's only good for, like, a short-term government. The purpose of that fascist government, for an interim government, is to establish monarchy. That's why we can't have that for too long, because what happens in fascist societies is that they will collapse. Look at what happened to Germany, to Italy. The only fascist government that did not collapse was Franco in Spain, and that's because Franco reestablished the monarchy. He served his term, and he fucked off. And what happened was that Spain was very prosperous for a while until the EU and its bullshit started to infest it.
Independently from each other, and they have their own God-given sovereignty in their respective domain. And what that means is that no single sphere should dominate or control the others. Examples of these spheres include the family, the church, the state or government, the education system, business.
Notice something. Do you see those black lines right there? Family and labor do not separate. I see the line as these are connected for a very good reason, because God ordained it as such. Church and state. Look at that line, and now our government very much is church and state, but oddly enough, not synagogue and state. There doesn't seem to be much restriction on that. Only church and state. Makes you think, doesn't it? God and man and community. You do not separate this. This is essential. This is essential. This is essential. And this doesn't mix with this or this. None of these necessarily mix. They're in their own domains. And they are linked they are linked like this for a reason.
Businesses or the economy, and finally arts and culture. Now, each of these spheres has its own jurisdiction or area where it has authority and must be allowed to function freely. And this is important because it limits totalitarianism or overreach.
Damn, I keep pressing the wrong fucking button. That's the right button.
By any one sphere. In other words, the state shouldn't control the church or the family. Moreover, this structure protects freedom within each sphere. Each area can fulfill its role without interference or usurpation by others. This structure also recognizes the value of the roles people play in their lives and the relationship those roles establish, affirming that different areas of life have different kinds of authority and ways of functioning. And finally, the structure reflects a theological conviction that God ordains multiple authorities, so no human institution can claim absolute control. Kuyper believed that God is sovereign over...
That's also something else. That's also something true as well. And Romans 13 no doubt has, if you want, actually, fuck it. I'm actually just going to pull up Romans 13 right here and right now, because I think that might actually be helpful in understanding this. And so we have, we're going to take a little bit of a detour here. We're going to read Romans 13. Unfortunately, not in the, let's see, what is an NSV? Or the NIV. So just so we can understand, because I know not everybody who is watching this, they might have a hard time understanding the KJV. I don't think I do. But even then, not to be prideful or anything. It's like I'm still learning how to read the KJV. But I could at least get an idea of what it's saying. So this is the translation I prefer to use when making my videos, because it's easier for people to understand. So let's read Romans 13, shall we? Let everyone be subject to governing authorities, for there is no authority except that which God has established. The authorities that exist have been established by God. Consequently, whoever rebels against the authority is rebelling against what God has instituted. And for those who do so bring, and those who do so will bring judgment on themselves. For rulers hold no terror for those who do right, but for those who do wrong. Do you want to be free from fear of the one in authority? Then do what is right, and you will be commended. For the one in authority is God's servant for your good. But if you do wrong, be afraid. For rulers do not bear the sword for no reason. They are God's servants, agents of wrath, to bring punishment on the wrongdoer. Therefore, it is necessary to submit to the authorities, not only because of possible punishment, but as a matter of conscience. This is also why you pay taxes for the authorities. For the authorities are God's servants, who give their full time to governing. Give to everyone what you owe them. If you owe taxes, pay taxes. If revenue, then revenue. If respect, then respect. If honor, then honor. Let no debt remain outstanding, except the continuing debt to love one another. For whoever loves others has fulfilled the law. The commandments: you shall not commit adultery, you shall not murder, you shall not steal, you shall not covet, and whatever other commands there may be are summed up in this one command: love your neighbor as yourself. Love does no harm to a neighbor. Therefore, love is the fulfillment of the law. And do this, understanding the present time. The hour has already come for you to wake up from your slumber, because our salvation is nearer now than when we first believed. The night is nearly over. The day is almost here. So let us put aside the deeds of darkness and put on the armor of light. Let us behave decently, as in the daytime, not in carousing and drunkenness, not in sexual immorality and debauchery, not in dissension and jealousy. Rather, clothe yourself with the Lord Jesus Christ, and do not think about how to gratify the desires of the flesh. Honestly, a very powerful chapter right there. A very, very dense chapter, too. And I know it's a little ironic I'm drinking and I read that. Though I wouldn't say I'm drunk or anything, or properly drunk. Just a nice buzz. But there is a lot that is in this chapter, especially from verses 1 to verses 7. Those are arguably the most important verses of that chapter. Let's get back to EGAD's video and let's see how that applies.
Over every sphere, and that Christians should engage in all spheres of life, bringing their faith to bear in politics, in education, family life, the arts, etc., but without merging everything into one monolithic institution. Now, the state is just one sphere among many. Its role is to protect the rights and the freedoms of all spheres. Therefore, it is not given to the financier to wield the sword of the magistrate. It is not given to the merchant to excommunicate as a bishop would. And it is not given to the Christian reformer, however sincere, to bypass the form of law and appeal instead to the unseen tribunal of corporate discretion. For when we do this, we are calling upon the money changers to serve as judges of righteousness.
And we all know who the money changers are. If you are familiar with with the book of John, where Christ, starts flipping over tables. Yeah, though the money lenders are the last people who should be in power, but because we live in clown world, of course they are. Of course they're the ones in power.
And therefore we are inverting the order of the spheres and undermining the legitimacy of Christian engagement in the public realm. Unfortunately, we live under the shadow of post-Enlightenment assumptions, where the world is presumed to be secular by default, and Christianity is something to be grafted on, an optional overlay rather than the ground of all meaning. But as John Frame's normative perspective would remind us, this is precisely backward. The world is by nature God's world. It is Christian at its root, and all that deviates from that reality is not neutral, but a distortion of the created order. So what we are witnessing today is not the neutral functioning of secular institutions, but Christian-born structures turning against their own foundations.
That's something else too. If you really think about it, the payment processors, what are they ultimately extensions of? Credit cards, debit cards. What are they ultimately extensions of? Well, wouldn't you know? It's the banks. And when the banks are basically serving against the interests of a native Christian population, well, what did you know? Shit's gonna go down. And tyranny will start, basically.
Institutions that were once rooted in godly purpose have now been repurposed as tools in power struggles. And what makes this especially grievous is the spectacle of Christian NGOs wielding economic pressure as if it were a moral instrument, claiming to act on behalf of righteousness while employing a means that is foreign to the kingdom of God. And what this means is that what is built today in the name of purity will tomorrow be turned against the saints. The mechanism of financial exclusion, once normalized, will be claimed by those who preach a very different gospel. And
that's the thing. As much as I like endless succession, I think who succeeds who matters greatly. I do not like, there's a reason why I do not like democracy, because in one cycle, it could be somebody who's actually decent, and then the next faggot who gets elected ruins everything. So that's the kind of endless succession I am not a fan of. It's too volatile, and it just kind of fucks everything up.
We as Christians will only have ourselves to blame, for we will have taught them how to do this. Judgment begins at the house of God, and it trickles its way outward into the world, not the other way around. Now let it be stated clearly, it is not wrong.
That's like the shit that the Pharisees did.
To call.
I'm just being honest here. That's what the Pharisees did. They tried to be the ones to be the judgment of God when they had no right to be. And Christ correctly rebuked them on that.
For the removal of evil, but it is wrong to do so by circumventing the instruments that God has appointed for such removal. Christians who are grieved by pornography must pursue law, governance, not corporate fiat. We must labor within the bounds of constitutional order and legislative process, not only because this is prudent, but because it is just. It's a sin against order to confuse the spheres. It is a form of rebellion to demand that the hand of commerce do what belongs to the robe of the judge or the pulpit of the preacher. Christ is Lord of all. He reigns not in chaos, but in structure, not in revolution.
Yep, that's why I like order, because our Lord and Savior likes order.
but in the reformation of every sphere in its place and purpose under his name. So let the church be the church, let the state be the state, and let commerce be commerce. Let each acknowledge its limits and responsibilities, and let the Christian never forget that in all his labors, whether as a citizen, a parent, an entrepreneur, or an advocate, he must work not only for the good, but through the good. That is the way of Christ. That is the
Exactly.
true moral order, and that is the calling to which we must once again submit. So
before we wrap up this video right here, I really want to mention something. Considering we just read Romans 13 not that long ago, I really should mention the credit card companies are not governing authorities. And keep in mind, in terms of that whole chapter, this is about governing authorities who follow the word of God. This is not about a bunch of, feminized tyrannies who think of themselves as an order, but they're not. The credit card companies are trying to do something that they should not do. Again, I made the comparison that they are basically the fourth branch of the American government. And they basically are. Let's not kid ourselves. They operate that way, and they keep funding the causes the government wants to fund. Even though Trump is in power right now, he hasn't really changed much about what the credit card companies can fund. So there's that. But let's wrap up EGAD's video, shall we? And then we'll get to just some updates and probably just chat with you guys.
Some of you have asked me, what is the solution? What is the path forward? Well, Abraham Kuyper reminded us that every sphere of life stands under the immediate sovereignty of Christ. The state is not the church, and a payment processor is not a magistrate. Yes, and a nonprofit is not a priest. Each sphere has its own tasks, its own limits, and its own dignity. Now, when any one sphere extends itself into another, be it a tech firm enforcing orthodoxy or a Christian group exercising economic leverage without legal authority, what does that do? Well, it deforms God's design and it invites tyranny under the guise of reform. So
now, I understand when a Christian group does something like this, it's like, oh, they're just taking advantage of the system to achieve their own ends, right? But at the same time, it's like, well, is this something that Christ would want you to do? Have you actually reflected on that? Have you prayed to that? And opened up your Bible to see or consulted your priest to see if this is something that is actually good, something that God would want you to do. That's important too. Whenever making big decisions like that, pray, consult some authority, your spiritual authority, and then act. It's not a bad thing to do.
So we need to reassert this structure. Christians need to recover the conviction that moral law does not justify lawless behavior. Our desire for a righteous society cannot come at the cost of procedural righteousness. If we abandon lawful means to enforce moral outcomes, we are not advancing Christ's kingdom. Instead, we are betraying it from within.
And that's honestly a really fair point, too.
Even Christian organizations, motivated by deeply held convictions, must not transgress their proper bounds. To do so is not to redeem the culture, but to compete for control over it.
And well said as always, EGAD. Basically, if you want, there's so many better means to achieve your goals as a Christian than to basically go through the Jewish payment processors and to achieve that. I mean, hey, Christians back then used to use force. I'm not gonna say anything more on that because I'm on YouTube. So there's that. So I'll be back, and then we'll have a little bit of a chat because there's things I want to update you guys on. So I'll be right back. Okay, I'm back. We're gonna do what we're gonna do is just bit of a talk, because I got some pretty cool news for you guys. However, as always, we're gonna put on the Silent Hill music because I really like putting on the Silent Hill music because it's really good. Okay, that's a little loud. Okay, there we go. Got it at a good volume. I want to provide you guys with a few updates before I get going. Oh yeah, your little gag video, Rexus. I guess I could pull that up. Okay. Fucking hell, Rexus. You have to clean up your links. You can't have that SI shit in there. Fixed it for you. Yeah, we could actually click on the link because okay. Okay, but we'll pause the Silent Hill music, and that means I gotta move myself over again. Fucking hell. Okay, I have a feeling I'm probably just gonna do what I did before, you know, the collabs and stuff. Unless I am doing collabs, that's fine. Anyways, I want to piss off the Gooners. So let's watch this. Skibbity Borean troopers. Haram! Ah, that's funny. Oh, looks like Amalgamite and Spoon are streaming. No wonder why I haven't been getting many viewers. Anyways, gonna get back to the Silent Hill music and just kind of talk to you guys about stuff. Okay, gotta gotta do that. Okay, so before I get going and before I send you guys to Amalgamite stream, I basically just want to let you guys know about like the future. So I am going to. So I think next week I'm going to be getting my rig. So I think that's like the 8th or the 9th. So just the day that my dad gets paid. That's gonna be probably the day after. That's when I get my rig. So I basically for this time I'm not gonna be making any videos. I have to basically do more to get files onto my soon-to-be new rig, which means I have to halt the production of videos for a little bit. I think I need some time to actually set it up. I think I'm probably gonna do a test stream the week after, like a public test stream. Rich kid, nice. Hey, I'm in fucking poverty right now. If I wasn't living with my parents, I'd probably be in some kind of like shelter or something. I wouldn't be doing this. But sometime in the future, I would be, sometime like 2 weeks from now, I'd be doing a test stream. And then I think if that goes well, the official... Oh wait, hi John Isaac. I thought you were Archaeosophy. How you doing, man? How you doing? I've just been having stuff to drink, that's all. I'm basically going to be just kind of doing some tests and all that, and of course I'm gonna be enjoying the new WoW patch that's coming out next week, and I can't wait to I can't fucking wait to play WoW with actual settings, and it won't be lagging. Like I could actually play it at just tuning in, and you tuned in at the very end. But hey, I don't mind. Sometimes that tends to happen, where people come in at the very end. But I just thought I'd provide some updates for you guys. I have to basically recalibrate the whole stream setup, so that's gonna take a bit of time. I don't think it might be at the end of the week of the 15th. But I do know that there's a proper stream would start on the 22nd or the 29th. I see Rex says, hey man, I'll pray that you're successful with your book. I'll pray for you, man. But anyways, in terms of that new computer, I definitely want some time to like get everything set up. Actually, no, I think the test stream is probably going to happen on the week of the 22nd of August, and then the actual stream is going to happen on the 29th. I'm probably going to do some private streams just for me to see. Collab stream with Saturn. That could definitely be in the future. I gotta see if Saturn would be interested in joining me for a segment or two. I also want some other of my Christian VTuber pals to join as well. I was gonna talk about all the drama that's going on in the sphere, but tell you the truth, I guess now we're gonna go beyond all the computer stuff and updates. We're gonna get into some eventathon stuff. In terms of the Christian VTuber sphere, I'm part of it, but only technically. And I like to talk about my Christian VTuber friends pretty positively. No, there's no drama between Saturn and I. But there's drama involved in the Christian VTuber space. And I don't know if some people are leaving because of me, even though I don't really interact very much, aside from the odd post here and there. I'm not really participating in the collabs that are always going on. I don't think people would really want to join my stream. I'm very much an edgelord through and through. I mean, I say faggot at least once a stream. There's other words I'd like to say, but if I could just end the stream on YouTube, I would, and I continue it on X, then I could probably get away with a lot more. But since I'm on YouTube so far, who knows, I might try multi-streaming in the future. But that's something else. I probably need a dual monitor setup for that. So for the time being, I'm sticking with just YouTube. But I don't know what caused. I think it was just a bunch of the censorship stuff that caused it, and people not staying in their own fucking lane. I think that's basically the cause of it. Do what you have to do, bro. With the sunglasses emoji. Yep. But I have to be honest here. You might obviously you see the Holy Bible in my hand. Yes, I'm very much a Christian, and we did read scripture earlier tonight in the stream. I'm not ashamed to do that. I'm not ashamed to talk about my faith as a soon-to-be baptized Orthodox Christian. However, it's like there is a certain reputation, at least, of being a Christian VTuber, and I don't know. That just doesn't apply to me. I mean, I drink. I'm very, I curse. I'm very much an edgelord. I say what's on my mind, with little to no filter. That doesn't necessarily fit in the image that community wants. And again, I've always been kind of a free agent, even, whether it's like, I want to associate with who I want to associate with. That's basically it for me. It's like, if I think you're cool, I think you're cool, and I want to talk to you, and all that. Maybe do some collabs here and there. But it's like I'm a VTuber who just so happens to be an Orthodox Christian. That's it. And I've explained this to my friend Honey Highland before. It's like, yeah, like I did ask her about that, and it's like, yeah, I'm more of a, I'm a VTuber who just so happens to be a Christian. But the thing is, my main issue with the Christian VTuber community, it's like, again, us Orthodox, we're a fucking minority in there, and so naturally that's gonna lead to some, some tension, for sure. But it's like, hey, as long as you leave me alone, somewhat, well, we're gonna get along. We'll get along and if you try to encroach where you shouldn't encroach, I'm going to be fucking feisty. That's the thing. That's the thing about being a free spirit. So, there's that. Nothing wrong with that, to be honest. Yeah, that's something else. It's not like I haven't been trying to, change for the better to fit more, to kind of fit in more with my faith. But that's not to try to fit in with the group or anything. It's because I want to be consistent with my own beliefs. And that's why some people would say that I've changed so drastically. They just haven't been watching my channel. But the thing is, ultimately, when it comes to what's been going on there, I could see why some people would want to leave the community. There is very much a sense of tone policing, for sure. I'm surprised. I think the reason why they haven't really gone after, like, tried to lecture me is because I just tell them to fuck off. And you never had my best interest at heart to begin with. Even though I've defended you thick and thin, that's an oath that I made to Christ, and I want to try to fulfill that oath to the best of my ability. But that's probably why I haven't gotten, like, so much shit for the stuff that I say and the things that I believe in. Because a lot of the stuff is like, especially the monarchy stuff, like that's something Christ would, like again, Christ is king. That's why that motto exists. Christ is king. But yeah, I just thought I'd at least add some my own commentary onto that. And I could absolutely see why some of my fellow Christian VTubers would leave the community. But for me, it's like, if I were to leave, I think I'd probably would feel a lot more depressed. That's for sure. I like joining in on the voice chats. I really do. I just think the community can be a bit too sticklery on certain things, mainly swearing. I don't know where people got this idea that swearing is a sin. I think it's because they misinterpret many verses of the New Testament. Think of the lines "filthy language" to mean swearing, but no, filthy language means lies and slander, not swearing, because swearing has always been a thing in society. If you look back into the medieval period, you would know that they swore too. Obviously, that they didn't say fuck you, Marty, but they had their own swears. God's bones, Christ's nails, stuff like that. And fun fact, you could actually see what a society valued based on its swears. And those societies very much did value. Very much did value Christianity, because that's stuff like God's bones or Christ's nails were the predominant swears of that period. I know it's weird stuff. I know. Let's see. Your soul is in your keeping alone. Remember that. Who are they to be holier than thou? That's true too. I will say it's one thing to to have a discussion with a fellow brother or sister in Christ on their theology. It's to have those kinds of tests to see what they truly value. And again, we live in a pretty fucked up society as it is. And the thing is, it doesn't hurt to ask where people's allegiances truly lie. Because if their allegiances are with Christ, you could definitely see that with what they believe in. I think that's the case. Again, it's like what I said at the start of the stream with that Kiss Alice faggot. He is supposedly a Christian, but he very much is a fan of the porn industry, and he is very much willing to defend his ability to jack off and to purchase 18 plus games that are harmful to his soul. And keep in mind, I wasn't even being mean to him. And even then, at the time, I thought that he was a she, but I got fooled good. Let's see. Dusty says, now is not the time for coarse language and jest or something like that. Korean language has 0 swears. It's all innuendo. Yep. And that's the thing, too. It's like, people misinterpret the now is not the time for coarse language or jest to apply to everything. But that's such a misinterpretation. I'm not sure if that's in Ecclesiastes 3. I could pull that up right now. Ecclesiastes 3. So, yeah, I could pull that up. I just gotta move myself over again. There's a time for everything, and a season for every activity under the heavens. A time to be born and a time to die. A time to plant and a time to uproot. A time to heal, a time to tear down, and a time to build. Hold on. A time to kill and a time to heal. A time to tear down and a time to build. A time to weep and a time to laugh. A time to mourn and a time to dance. A time to scatter stones and time to gather them. a time to embrace and time to refrain from embracing, a time to search and a time to give up, a time to keep and a time to throw away, a time to tear and a time to mend, a time to speak, a time to be silent and a time to speak, a time to love and a time to hate, a time for war and a time for peace. What do workers gain from their toil? I have seen the burden God has laid on the human race. He has made everything beautiful in its time. He has also set eternity in the human heart. Yet, no one can fathom what God has done from beginning to end. I know there is nothing better for the people than to be happy and to do good while they live, that each of them may eat and drink and find satisfaction in all their toil. This is the gift of God. I know everything God does will endure forever. Nothing can be added to it. Nothing can be taken from it. God does it so that people will fear him. Whatever has already been, and what will be has been before, and God will call the past to account. And I saw something under the sun. In the place of judgment, wickedness was there. In the place of justice, wickedness was there. I said to myself, God will bring into judgment both the righteous and the wicked, for there will be a time for every activity, a time to judge every deed. I also said to myself, as for humans, God tests them so they may be able to see that they are like the animals. Surely the fate of human beings is like that of the animals. The same fate awaits them both. As one dies, so dies the other. All have the same breath. Humans have no advantage over animals. Everything is meaningless. All go to the same place. All come from dust, and to dust all return. Who knows if the human spirit rises upward, and if the spirit of the animal goes down into the earth? So I saw that there is nothing better for a person to enjoy, than to enjoy their work, because that is their lot. For who can bring them to see what will happen after them? Very powerful stuff right there. Very powerful stuff. So yes, there is indeed a time to be coarse. There's a time to be edgy. You know, these streams of mine, that's a great time to be edgy. At church, sometimes I think there's a limit. I've learned that there's a limit. It's like, there's certain people that I like to talk to about this stuff, and again, I go to an Orthodox church, and they are very JQ-pilled there. But yes, like outside, especially outside, like I try not to swear at church. Really, the only time I swear when I'm there is like during coffee hour, and that's like outside of the building. But I'm not saying like, oh, fuck that. I'm saying like the worst that I've said is like ass, like, you know, that person, people, or that sucks ass, like just something like that. Or, kick ass. That's the worst that I say at church. But even then, it's like not during the service. I try not to talk during the service. Unless I have a question, but then that typically gets answered after. I have a lot to learn, you know. But people really do misinterpret Ecclesiastes 3. Like that's for sure. There is a time for everything. Again, the Bible is the Word of God. And to the Protestants who might be listening to this, hey, you know, sola scriptura. I don't believe in that bullshit, but you do. Hey, it says it in the Bible. There's a time for everything. No need to get your panties in a bunch when I say the fuck word. But anyways, I think that's it. I provided the updates I needed to provide. You'll probably see me for a proper. Actually, hold on. I'm not quite finished just yet. I forgot that the 19th is gonna be Gamescom. So I think I might do a reaction stream to the Midnight expansion for World of Warcraft being revealed. So you might see that. So that means I gotta get the fuck to work in getting OBS all set up again. VTube Studio as well. I think I just have to set up VTube Studio first, and then OBS. I'll have OBS downloaded, but not like all set up or whatnot. There's things I have to download first. But I think I'll be back on the 19th of Tuesday, if depending if if Gamescom is at a time that I could actually react to it, of course. And I'm gonna be watching the Midnight Deep Dive as well. Probably gonna be I can't believe I'm gonna be doing WoW content like that again, but you know, I'm not making route videos or stuff like that. It's just I'm just reacting to what's going on in the game. But anyways, I will catch you guys later. I just have to go to Amalgamite's stream, and I'll send you guys there. Okay, sorry I have to mute you, Amal. I don't want your stream to, you know, have any intersection on my audio. So go over there. I'll catch you guys later. And if you want any updates